He was revered as the strongest sacred god in history, even surpassing the 12 sacred god constellations. He was the Ophiuchus constellation. Just as Li Jian reached out to touch the emerald-scaled giant serpent, a mysterious and ethereal voice echoed in his ears, "You have become the master of Ophiuchus." Li Jian was actually one of the 13 human saints. Unlike the other 12 saints, he was the only saint who had never received the sacred god's blessing. Yet he possessed power far exceeding the 12 saints. Only because numerous disaster misfortunes suddenly appeared in the world, the sacred gods bestowed their power upon humans, attempting to help humans eliminate the disaster misfortunes on the planet. However, the 12 saints who received the power each harbored their own ulterior motives. To eliminate the core of the disaster misfortunes, the Red Eye, they came to the Demon Tower where disaster misfortunes gathered. The terrifying pressure emanating from the Red Eye made everyone tremble in fear, accompanied by an angry roar from the Red Eye. The entire Demon Tower began to shake. Even the ground ahead started to crack. Upon seeing the scorching magma pit that suddenly appeared beneath their feet, everyone fled in terror without looking back. But Li Jian was already prepared to fight to the death. When he successfully slayed the ultimate disaster misfortune, the Red Eye, a blade directly pierced through his chest from behind. Before he could see clearly who had ambushed him, he was kicked into the abyss. He never expected those cowardly fugitives would return to ambush him. But because of this, he accidentally discovered that the Red Eye's true form was hidden beneath the abyss, and it was continuously creating even more terrifying disaster misfortune. Intense hatred supported Li Jian as he slowly got up. He never surrendered to fate. Before killing those who betrayed him, he absolutely couldn't fall here. Meanwhile, in the outside world, the 12 saints became great heroes who saved the world. They even held a press conference for Li Jian's sacrifice, but only they knew the truth of what happened. Until 20 years later, Li Jian finally crushed the last disaster misfortune in the Demon Tower. Afterwards, the entire tower began to rumble with thunderous sounds. At the same time, outside the tower, 2 humans were surrounded by a pack of wolf disaster misfortunes. The desperate boy fell to his knees. He said, "If Master Li Jian had come out of the Demon Tower back then, the world wouldn't be like this now." However, the Demon Tower ahead suddenly began to shake violently, then directly exploded. After the dust settled, only a huge crater remained on the ground, but mysteriously, a figure appeared in the explosion's crater. That person's body emanated dark green lightning. "Dare to stab me from behind and ambush me, you little bastards, you're all dead." Then, Li Jian appeared directly in front of the two. Under their shocked and fearful gaze, in just 2 or 3 moves, he cleared out all the surrounding disaster misfortunes. Seeing this, the two could hardly believe their eyes. Even high-level awakened ones struggled to deal with such disaster misfortunes. But for this person, it seemed as simple as crushing ants. Suddenly, the 3 felt the sky instantly darken. Looking up, they saw a massive wolf disaster misfortune staring at Li Jian. As crackling sounds came from the magic wolf's mouth, an extremely exaggerated beam of light shot directly from its mouth. An attack of such magnitude swept through the entire city. In an instant, half the city was turned to dust. However, when the dust settled, Li Jian stood there at the forefront completely unharmed. He revealed a playful smile, then leaped high into the air, shouting, "You, go to hell!" The 2 people beside him were so frightened they froze. In their eyes, the current Li Jian was an even more terrifying existence than the disaster misfortunes. Turning around, Li Jian chuckled and said, "Let's go eat, and buy me some clothes while we're at it." Hearing this, the 2 stood stunned in place. A moment later, they arrived at a restaurant. In the blink of an eye, Li Jian ate 60,000 yuan worth of food. He also said, "I know you don't have much money, so I've been restraining myself." After eating and drinking his fill, Li Jian looked puzzledly at the young man. He said, "You look like an ordinary person, but I sense magic power from you." The other explained, "This is the grace bestowed by the sacred god, allowing me to awaken as a saint." "Aren't you the same? What garbage sacred god, why should I serve them?" Just then, he suddenly noticed his reflection in the spoon. Li Jian's heart skipped a beat as he thought, "Holy crap, who is this handsome guy?" He suddenly stood up and asked, "Where is a mirror?" Then he quickly rushed to the mirror. Li Jian discovered that the horrible scars on his face had completely disappeared. Even his severed arm had miraculously regenerated, and in his palm appeared a mark. Before he could react, that mark gradually materialized into a physical form, emitting a faint green light. Then, an unbearably piercing pain shot through his arm. The next second, his consciousness was pulled into a vast and boundless space. Before him appeared an immensely huge emerald-scaled giant serpent. When he came before the giant serpent, a mysterious and ethereal voice echoed in his ears. "You have experienced death, completed an impossible task. You have become the master of Ophiuchus, gaining super regeneration ability." In disbelief, he reached out to touch the giant serpent before him. The moment he made contact, the emerald-scaled giant serpent emitted a dazzling bright light. Before he could react, Li Jian's consciousness returned to reality. Seeing the two's dumbfounded expressions, he realized that besides himself, others couldn't see that giant serpent. Although he wasn't clear what exactly Ophiuchus was, he didn't sense any sacred god power. However, obtaining this power wasn't a bad thing. Thinking about being able to teach those who ambushed him a lesson, he became excited. At this time, the area near the Demon Tower had already been cordoned cordoned off by relevant departments. Seeing the Demon Tower turn to ruins, some believed it was maliciously destroyed. After all, only the Demon Tower was the landmark building associated with Li Jian. Seeing the enormous disaster Misfortune's corpse lying nearby, some boldly speculated that Li Jian had returned. When Aries Saint Yangwei received news about the Demon Tower, he immediately suspected Li Jian was still alive and had come out of the Demon Tower. But on second thought, he found his idea somewhat laughable. Surviving for 20 years in a horrifying place with over 1 million black disaster Misfortune was impossible. At this time, Li Jian curiously stared at the phone before him. He hadn't expected technology to develop so rapidly in these 20 years. Phones could even connect to the internet. With the youth's help, Li Jian quickly found news about himself. After seeing comments from keyboard warriors who didn't know the truth, Li Jian was furious. When they saw the red eye back then, they all fled in fear. Yet they dare say they eliminated the red eye. But he quickly calmed his anger. Then he dialed the number from his memory. Meanwhile, on the other side, Sagittarius Saint Yuguo Otus had just got off the plane when he received news of the Demon Tower's collapse. This reminded him of 20 years ago, the day before the mission began. Yuguo, who possessed the ability of prophecy, found Li Jian in advance and told him he might die in this mission. As a good friend, he hoped Li Jian would abandon this mission, but Li Jian didn't take it seriously, even saying if he could come back alive, he'd let Yuguo treat him to fried chicken for 10 years. On the day of the mission, he stayed outside the tower eliminating disaster Misfortunes and guarding the exit at Li Jian's request. But in the end, came the news of Li Jian's death. That group who entered the tower actually abandoned Li Jian, only bringing back the Red Eye's head. Because of this achievement, including Yuguo, the 12 saints were hailed as heroes by everyone, and gained supreme authority. He never could believe Li Jian died just like that. Yuguo countless times wanted other saints to enter the tower with him to search for Li Jian, but was refused by other saints. Without other saints' help, he couldn't save Li Jian, and finally had to accept reality. Now 20 years had passed. No matter how strong Li Jian was, he couldn't possibly still be alive. Then, Yuguo received a voice call from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister told him the Demon Tower had collapsed. Black-level disaster Misfortune corpse was found in the collapsed ruins. Li Jian might still be alive. Hearing this, Yuguo sighed helplessly, then impatiently told the Prime Minister not to mention it anymore. Li Jian had sacrificed himself in the Demon Tower 20 years ago. But the Prime Minister's next words shocked him. Just now, Li Jian's special line had rung. Hearing this, he hurriedly patted the driver to stop the car. He suddenly remembered his phone had been ringing non-stop earlier. Could it be Li Jian? When he picked up his phone, he found there was a voice message. He put the phone to his ear and heard a very familiar voice. Otus, I will find you, then kill you. Yuguo was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. This voice, this tone, this really was Li Jian. At this time, a suddenly popping up news caught Li Jian's attention. It was news about the re-examination of Li Jian's will. Back then, he decided if he died, he would donate all his property to orphanages. Li Jian also wanted to see if they had properly executed this. But to his surprise, except for the Sagittarius Saint, other saints had divided up his property. They even said it was to help them better save humanity. Li Jian could no longer contain his anger. He vowed to kill them, including the sacred gods behind them. At this time, Li Jian was also somewhat troubled, even if he told everyone he was back. But his current appearance differed too much from 20 years ago. Even if he told everyone he was Li Jian, he would be treated as mentally ill. However, at this moment, a system prompt appeared in his mind. Someone is watching you. At the same time, he also sensed a familiar aura. He had been wanting somewhere to vent his inner anger. Looking out of the restaurant, countless Aries attribute gods floated in the sky, and arrogantly demanded Li Jian offer them sacrifices. A bunch of shameless people who only knew how to flatter, daring to come provoke him. Just as Li Jian was about to teach them a lesson, a couple passed by his side. They wore Gemini Saint badges on their chests, continuously giggling and muttering. What era was this? How could people still discuss whether Li Jian was alive? Even if he was alive, he wouldn't have the face to call himself the 13th saint anymore. Li Jian quietly watched the approaching couple. The man contemptuously told Li Jian to get out of the way, then blew a puff of smoke in Li Jian's face, saying, "Idiot, don't block the way. What are you looking at? Fight me if you dare." Seeing Li Jian unmoved, the man immediately felt very uninteresting. After cursing coward, he turned to leave with the woman. Then they continued discussing their previous topic. Why would anyone like Li Jian, the weakest among the saints? Only idiots would like him. Hearing this, Li Jian could no longer endure. He shouted at the departing couple, "Hey, you two cockroaches over there." The incredulous couple turned to look at Li Jian together. Li Jian said, "Yes, you two." The man walked menacingly to Li Jian's front and said, "Say that again if you dare." However, before he could finish speaking, Li Jian directly extended his finger, then flicked the man flying. The man flew several meters away. Seeing this, the woman instantly appeared behind Li Jian, quickly condensing a golden light ball in her palm. Li Jian chuckled, extended his hand and flicked, blasting the woman into the building opposite. Seeing this, the two were directly frightened, frozen in place. The uncle nearby hurriedly said, "No matter what, you shouldn't use magic power on the main street." Li Jian said indifferently, "What are you saying? If I had used magic power, they would be dead." Then he directly came to the man's side and yanked off the Gemini badge from his chest. Li Jian was very curious why these guys would have sacred objects. These things should only be owned by saints. The youth patiently explained to Li Jian. It turned out that after Li Jian's death, the disaster Misfortunes weren't completely eliminated. Humans could only continue to survive because of the sacred gods and the 12 saints chosen by them. But the power of these 12 saints alone wasn't enough to protect all lands, and the sacred god's power source was people's faith power. So the saints bestowed power upon humans who followed them and established sacred groups, and humans who awakened after receiving saints' power were called saints. So sacred gods would also bestow some sacred objects to those chosen saints. Hearing this, Li Jian clenched his fists. Such changes had actually occurred in these 20 years. Just then the Aries attribute gods came to Li Jian's front, hoping Li Jian would kill this couple and promising him rewards. The man hurriedly advised Li Jian to do as the attribute gods required, because they were like the shadows of sacred gods. Opposing them was opposing sacred gods. At this time Li Jian finally realized, so these guys were like him, only caring about themselves. However, Li Jian just calmly raised his left foot, then stomped violently on the ground. Instantly, a terrifying energy wave rapidly spread to the surroundings, directly killing all the attribute gods here, and their arranged barrier also instantly collapsed. At night, Li Jian followed the boy home. After taking a hot shower, he also trimmed his hairstyle. But when he walked out of the bathroom, he found the house full of ominous objects. These things were constantly attracting small disaster misfortunes, like mosquitoes. The boy said these were all sacred objects blessed by saints. Before he finished speaking, Li Jian blasted these things to pieces. He hadn't expected these filthy saints not only occupied his property, but also sold low-level ominous objects everywhere. Just then, the boy's roommate suddenly opened the door. Seeing the mess in the room, Shengkai immediately became furious. After learning Li Jian had saved Hanji, Shengkai barely suppressed his inner anger. When Shengkai asked Li Jian's name and which sacred group he belonged to, Li Jian said, "Only those 12 idiots would serve sacred gods. I, Li Jian, don't need to." Upon hearing he claimed to be Li Jian, the angry Shengkai finally couldn't hold back, coming to someone's home, inexplicably breaking things, and daring to impersonate Master Li Jian. Shengkai instantly burst out blazing blue flames from his whole body. Seeing this, Li Jian activated Ophiuchus' skill, God's Eye, and Shenkai's information appeared before his eyes in data form. Seeing this, Li Jian's figure flashed behind Shengkai, then extended his hand and directly flicked Shengkai away. Hanji was dumbfounded. Li Jian chuckled and said, "Shengkai is fine, just fainted. I'm going to sleep first. He'll wake up soon." However, when he randomly opened a room door, he found the entire room filled with his statue models everywhere. Li Jian's face immediately darkened. Hanji explained, "Shengkai is Li Jian's devoted fan." Before Hanji could finish speaking, Li Jian directly broke off a statue's head. The heartbroken Shengkai instantly burst into tears. Meanwhile, in the Aries sacred temple, learning that all Aries attribute gods in H country had disappeared, Yang Wei was terrified. Because Li Jian was buried in the demon tower under H country's jurisdiction, he immediately thought of recent news discussing the possibility of Li Jian being alive, due to his recent failure in conquering the Spider Queen in H country, plus this collective disappearance of attribute gods. If this continued, his position as a saint would be endangered. To dispel his concerns, Yang Wei immediately ordered subordinates to prepare a plane. He wanted to personally go to H country to see. On the other side, Shengkai and Hanji were shopping for daily necessities in the supermarket. Hanji asked him, "Could that big brother really be Master Li Jian? I saw him come out of the demon tower." Shengkai said, "Absolutely impossible. Master Li Jian is humanity's great hero savior. How could he be that kind of thug?" However, at this moment, a figure suddenly passed between them. While shouts came from behind, "Catch that thief!" They immediately sensed this person must be a Scorpio saint. Scorpio saints possess speed beyond ordinary people, yet they never expected they would use such ability to rob. Just when this person was feeling smug that no one could stop him, Li Jian suddenly appeared and gave him a punch. The thief almost had his eyeballs pop out of his mouth. Just as Hanji was wondering why he would appear here, a bald man instantly appeared beside Li Jian. He said, "Judging by your aura, you seem like an ordinary saint. Next time in such situations, it's better to call the police first." Li Jian was confused. Where did this person come from? However, at this moment, the entire mall began to shake violently. Seeing this, the thief, noticing no one was paying attention to him, immediately got up and desperately fled in one direction. He thought using his quick movement skills, he could escape from here immediately. But the next second, a giant mouth directly swallowed him. Then, many enormous insect disaster misfortunes suddenly burst out from underground. When the dust settled, people finally saw the disaster misfortune's true form. It was actually a red-level Spider Queen leading its army. At the Spider Queen's command, all disaster misfortunes charged towards the crowd. In an instant, the entire mall was thrown into chaos, people fleeing in all directions, just as a crying little boy was about to be swallowed by a disaster misfortune. At this moment, Li Jian descended from the sky, directly smashing the monster into the ground. He was about to ask if the boy was hurt, but the boy was instead frightened by Li Jian's sudden appearance and ran away. Facing the continuing onslaught of disaster misfortunes, Li Jian also decided to warm up his muscles here, and behind him gradually appeared the phantom of a giant snake. He was supposedly the Aries saint chosen by gods to save humanity, yet he actually wanted to could bury alive everyone in the entire mall. It turned out that after failing to suppress the Spider Queen last time, he could only conceal the truth and seal her. Unexpectedly, the Spider Queen broke free so quickly. If the outside world learned he hadn't eliminated the Spider Queen, then his Ares Sacred Temple's reputation would surely suffer tremendous damage. To keep his secret, he directly ordered saints to go bury the entire mall. However, what he didn't know was that Li Jian, whom he thought died in the Demon Tower, was fighting desperately in the mall. Meanwhile, inside the supermarket, facing hundreds of thousands of disaster misfortunes, the bald Gemini man emanated waves of cold air from his body. He used his strongest skill, Ice Prison. He slammed the ground fiercely. Ice spikes instantly extended forward. Damn bugs, go die. The cold air instantly froze all disaster misfortunes it passed. However, before he could rejoice for half a second, the ice freezing the disaster misfortunes shattered in the blink of an eye. He never expected that as an S-rank saint, he couldn't even control the disaster misfortunes for a few seconds. At this time, Li Jian suddenly appeared in front of the bald man. He was holding many carbonated drinks. He directly threw all the carbonated drinks at the disaster misfortunes, then immediately charged forward. The disaster misfortune roared with all their might. After several moves, Li Jian had eliminated all the disaster misfortunes before him. Then he received a system prompt. You have eliminated disaster misfortunes. Increase God Seed experience. Obtain crafting materials. Forging function unlocked. Can use materials to create skills and sacred objects. Seeing this, the two were simply in disbelief. And at this time, the bald man was even more shocked. The disaster misfortunes that even he as an S-rank couldn't eliminate, this person eliminated so easily. Then he pointed at Li Jian with a shocked face saying, "No wonder you seem familiar. So you're the criminal who attacked our Gemini saints." Before the bald man could finish speaking, Li Jian directly punched him in the face. He said, "You know too much. Also, how did you figure it out?" The bald man angrily pointed at Li Jian shouting, "Aren't those clothes and sacred objects what you stole after robbing our saints? And that sacred badge was bestowed by the Holy Lady." Li Jian just now noticed this thing on the clothes. Then he lightly pinched, and the Gemini sacred badge instantly shattered. What garbage sacred object, at most it's just a decoration. The bald man was infuriated. But just then, many survivors ran toward Gear, and behind them was the Spider Queen's enormous figure. Without a word, Li Jian immediately charged forward. His movements were agile. Dealing with the Spider Queen came naturally. After several exchanges, he knocked down the Spider Queen. People were shocked seeing someone could fight the Spider Queen. Could it be someone sent by the sacred gods to save us? Only the bald man's expression became very grave. Who exactly was he? Without even sacred objects, he could fight barehanded against disaster misfortunes at the Spider Queen's level. But just then, a familiar voice rang in the bald man and Shang Kai's minds. All Gemini saints, withdraw from the supermarket immediately. Soon after, the Ares saint will bury this entire mall. After receiving the team leader's retreat order, Shang Kai and the bald man had disagreements. Shang Kai was unwilling to abandon his friend and everyone in the supermarket to escape alone. Seeing Shang Kai had no intention of leaving, but he couldn't disobey the Saint Group leader's orders. He had no choice but to kill all the people Shang Kai cared about, to make him escape with him. Seeing this, Shang Kai immediately became alert. Blue flames instantly surrounding his whole body, just as conflict between the two was about to erupt. However, the next second, a huge disaster misfortune figure directly smashed into the bald man. Then, Li Jian leaped down from the monster's body. He told Shang Kai and the other to quickly escape from here. The two said the exits here had been blocked. They could either escape through the transmission array, but it could only transmit a few people, or eliminate all disaster misfortunes, including the Spider Queen. Moreover, there were too many injured people in the supermarket, and outside the Ares saints were about to bury the entire supermarket. Hearing this, even Li Jian felt quite troubled. Just then, the bald man crawled out from the pile of rubble. He no longer wanted to care about these idiots before him. He directly took out his phone to contact outside to open transmission. But the next second, a spider web directly covered him. Before he could struggle, he was instantly swallowed by the Spider Queen. Seeing this, Li Jian asked them to take care of those injured people and find a chance to escape. He will end the battle here as soon as possible. Meanwhile, outside, Ares Saint Yang Wei was directing his followers to begin the sealing ritual, just as the seal was about to be completed. In the next instant, the sealing light shattered. A massive serpent broke through the seal and emerged. Then, crowds of people rushed out of the supermarket shouting that a man had defeated the Spider Queen. Yang Wei's whole body trembled at the news. How could this be possible? Even he couldn't defeat that spider. With this thought, he decided to go investigate immediately. He rushed to the supermarket right away. When he arrived, he was shocked by the scene before him. The enormous corpse of the Spider Queen lay in the middle of the supermarket. Seeing the massive craters left by the battle scattered around, his scalp tingled with fear. Suddenly he sensed a familiar presence. Yang Wei quickly went to the window to check. He discovered that Sagittarius Saint Yuguo had also appeared here. Could Yuguo be responsible for all this? However, at that moment, Yang Wei froze. A voice both familiar yet strange came from behind. Li Jian said, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Yang Wei turned around immediately and asked, "Are you Li Jian?" Just then, a violent explosion erupted in the supermarket. Having narrowly escaped death, Yang Wei panted heavily, staring at the silhouette in the smoke. Li Jian laughed. "We haven't seen each other for 20 years and the first thing you do is attack me? That's too much." Though shocked that this guy was still as powerful as before, Yang Wei burst into laughter after getting a clear look at Li Jian's face. Although this person's appearance appearance and voice were very similar to Li Jian's. He had no scar, and Li Jian couldn't possibly look this young. Realizing this, Yang Wei began gathering power and said, "How dare you deceive me?" Hearing this, Li Jian's brows furrowed. Then Li Jian instantly appeared before him and landed a punch. Yang Wei fell to the ground. Li Jian looked at Yang Wei lying in the ruins and chuckled. "You so-called bastard saints? Always need a beating before you'll listen, don't you? No matter, I'm going to kill all of you anyway, and I won't spare your pampered sacred gods behind you either." Hearing this, Yang Wei finally realized that this person was definitely Li Jian, though unclear how he had survived the demon tower. The fact that Li Jian was alive must not become known to the outside world, or the 12 saints would never know peace. With this in mind, he decided he must completely eliminate Li Jian here. Yang Wei's body suddenly surged with magical power. A giant figure appeared behind him. System prompt: the doppelganger of Tiangong, sacred god of Aries, has manifested. Seeing this, Li Jian merely chuckled. Yang Wei looked at Li Jian with contempt and pointed with one hand. Huge chains materialized in the void and flew toward Li Jian, instantly binding him tightly. Then, countless blades manifested in the void once again. With the power of the sacred god's doppelganger enhancing him, Yang Wei spread his arms. In an instant, the blades formed into ice blades in the air. These ice blades shot toward Li Jian. Li Jian was pinned down by the ice blades. Seeing Li Jian buried under the mountain of swords, Yang Wei laughed and said, "You dare to confront me head-on? Did you think we've done nothing these 20 years? The power of faith contributed by the disciples isn't for nothing." But in the next second, the entire sword mountain shook violently and began glowing. Then, a massive fist directly struck Yang Wei's face, sending him flying several meters. Yang Wei trembled in fear. Meanwhile, Li Jian's wounds were rapidly healing. The Aries sacred god questioned Yang Wei's ability, disappeared without caring whether he lived or died. Li Jian stared at Yang Wei with a mocking expression, saying, "You seized my property and pushed me into the abyss. Now it's time for you to experience the suffering I once endured." Then Li Jian activated his ability, the 13th sense. At this time, Sagittarius Saint Yu Guo followed Li Jian's aura to the Aries temple. Seeing the devastated temple, Yu Guo was bewildered. "Please, Li Jian, stop causing trouble." Suddenly he saw two figures dragging a large bag of items from the temple. Yu Guo immediately rushed over. He hugged the young man who had hair similar to Li Jian's, saying, "Since you made it out alive, why didn't you come find me? You just got back and you're already causing trouble. What happened to your leg? You shouldn't be wandering around if you're not well." Li Jian stood beside them looking confused. Angered, he kicked Yu Guo and said, "Don't you recognize me?" Yu Guo noticed slime on the shoulder of the one who kicked him, and his violent temper of striking people without warning. He was certain this was Li Jian. He immediately hugged Li Jian and cried, "You really are Li Jian, thank goodness you're alive." But Li Jian pointed at Yu Guo and cursed, "What's so good about it? We need to settle our accounts. After getting out of the tower, my house was gone. All the sacred artifacts disappeared. Even my suicide note was fabricated by those saints. Shouldn't you take my punch first?" Yu Guo said, "You really are Li Jian, you bastard, that punch really hurt." Just then, many security guards rushed out of the temple museum shouting, "Catch him, he's the one who stole the sacred artifacts." Seeing this, Yu Guo asked helplessly, "What exactly did you take from them?" But in the next moment, Li Jian dropped a large bag of sacred artifacts in front of him. Yu Guo was stunned and said, "You really are crazy, you came back and emptied out Yang Wei's home." At this point, a bald guard suggested to the captain whether they should rush up to catch him. The captain replied, "No, a monster like this needs a monstrous opponent." As soon as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly leaped out from above the temple, unleashing a thunderous roar at Li Jian and Yu Guo below. It was the Pixiu, symbol of wealth, and a divine beast belonging to Aries. Seeing this, Yu Guo suggested Li Jian drop the items and run. However, Li Jian remained unmoved. He directly let slime transform into a blade, then infused it with the power of Ophiuchus, saying, "Show your true form." In the next second, a dark green lightning exploded at the spot. When the smoke cleared, the blade in Li Jian's hand had become a massive black sword. The power of Ophiuchus had awakened the sacred artifact, gaining the Ophiuchus trait, snake capture. Then he immediately activated his ability, the 13th sense, and the Pixiu's weaknesses were instantly revealed before Li Jian. Without another word, Li Jian grabbed the sword and charged. But just as he reached the Pixiu, he was slapped into the ground by its paw. Before the Pixiu could make another move, Li Jian lifted its massive paw and said, "Your foot really stinks, I'm about to pass out." Then he showed a playful smile and said, "Now it's my turn." Li Jian charged at the Pixiu, slicing off its paw. The Pixiu roared in pain, becoming instantly enraged. But Li Jian remained completely calm. The Pixiu opened its huge mouth, creating an extremely powerful suction force that drew in everything around it. Li Jian raised his great sword, then activated the Ophiuchus trait. He said, "You should have stayed still, at least you wouldn't get beaten. Now, take my blade." The sword slashed out. Li Jian's aura was fierce. He felt exhilarated throughout his body. The resulting storm leveled the Aries temple to the ground. At this moment, Li Jian suddenly received a system prompt. "You have captured captured a divine beast. Would you like to capture it? When Li Jian reached out to touch the Pixiu's head, a surge of tremendous energy poured from his hand, enveloping it. The next second, an adorable little creature fell into Li Jian's hands. Li Jian was excited. This cute little thing would make a perfect mobile treasury. From now on, you'll be my piggy bank. In the evening, Li Jian went home with Yu Guo. Yu Guo was very curious about how Li Jian spent these 20 years, and what exactly happened back then. Li Jian told Yu Guo he had been ambushed by the saints, and that he discovered the true red eye in the depths of the demon tower. Because of this, he found the true master of the demon tower, who could infinitely revive and create disasters. After defeating him, he escaped from that hellish lair. Afterward, he gained mysterious powers, though still unclear about the source of this power. This power could help him deal with those who had ambushed him. After saying this, Li Jian directly summoned the creation workshop function. He took out all the sacred artifacts he had obtained from Yang Wei, then fused them with the Spider Queen's core of corruption. The next second, a red horse-like object appeared before Li Jian. System prompt: sacred artifact creation complete. Self-awareness generated. Can write the name on the red horse. It will be able to absorb that person's magic power. Seeing Li Jian create this strange-looking little horse, Yu Guo said, "This horse is too ugly." Angered, Li Jian cursed, "Do you know how expensive the materials were to make this? I was thinking of making one for you too, but now forget it." Hearing this, Yu Guo immediately praised Li Jian's ingenious and elegant design. Li Jian remained unmoved, saying, "We'll see how you behave from now on." Then he brought out a box he had taken from the Ares temple, the Golden Fleece Vault, which could enhance the level of any sacred artifact placed inside. Li Jian had planned to use it to create higher-level sacred artifacts, but Yu Guo told him this sacred tool could only be used by the Ares saint. Li Jian had to give up on this idea. When Yu Guo learned that Li Jian planned to target other saints, he was shocked. Yu Guo said, "Killing Yang Wei is already a big problem. What more do you want?" Li Jian pulled out a rabbit doll and said, "Yang Wei isn't dead. This doll is Yang Wei. His last battle had accidentally given him the ability to confine other souls." Then he took out a short dagger and handed it to Yu Guo, saying, "This is the knife that was stabbed into my back in the demon tower." Yu Guo looked at the patterns on the blade, feeling this wasn't an ordinary style. Li Jian said he would go to the sacred artifact auction. Perhaps he could find unexpected answers there. Meanwhile, a group of women in black arrived at the ruins of the Ares temple. After investigation, the leader in sunglasses made a mysterious phone call. On the other end was the Aquarius saint, Sophie Marty. The woman in black said, "Holy lady, the Ares temple has become ruins. There's no trace of Yang Wei." Sophie Marty said with a mocking smile, "Is that so? Where could that bald fatty have gone?" Just then, a subordinate ran in saying, "Something's wrong. Other saints have also received invitations to the drachma auction." Sophie Marty angrily said, "What did you say?" On the other side, Leo Saint Stephen Mark also received news of the auction. He casually put down his 9.6 million barbell, confidently saying, "Li Jian's sacred artifacts will definitely be ours." Meanwhile, Li Jian and Shankai had already arrived at the sacred artifact exchange. They wanted to sell the sacred artifacts Li Jian had made, and also inquire about the patterns on the short sword. The appraiser Qin Ming stared at the statue before him, sweating profusely. He could sense this statue must have been made by Master Li Jian. Then he cautiously asked Li Jian, "What is your relationship with Master Li Jian?" Everyone knew Li Jian was strong in battle, but few knew he was the first forge master. Li Jian's eyes immediately lit up. "You know him so well, are you his fan too?" Qin Ming told Li Jian with a blushing face that he was actually Master Li Jian's most beloved disciple. Li Jian was confused. He didn't remember ever taking any disciples. And why was he blushing? He was about to teach this liar who spoke nothing but lies a lesson, when Qin Ming suddenly pulled out a small booklet, saying it was given to him when Li Jian took him as a disciple. Seeing this item, Li Jian immediately recognized it as his lost handbook of notes. Li Jian thought, could he be the one who kept following me around 20 years ago? I thought I had lost it before, but it turns out he stole it. Great, because it still records the original drawings. When he couldn't find it before, he regretted losing that for a while. At this time, system prompt, the sleeping handbook has responded to its master's magic power. Influenced by Ophiuchus' magic power, it has evolved into a sacred artifact. Seeing this, Qin Ming was shocked, suspecting Li Jian had cast some sort of magic on this handbook while alive. But just then, Aquarius Saint and others pushed open the door. When she saw Li Jian's face, she was immediately attracted by his handsome features. Love overwhelmed her mind in an instant. The next second she felt as if she was being watched by an ancient monster. Upon realizing this, she collapsed to the ground trembling, cold sweat breaking out. She had sensed death, as if countless poisonous snakes had her tightly bound. Thinking of this, Sophie felt terrified and could no longer care about anything else, rushing out the door. Seeing this, Li Jian and the others were confused. Learning that the woman who had just fled in panic was Aquarius Saint Sophie Marty, Li Jian couldn't stop laughing. Although her appearance had changed somewhat, her ugly nature remained the same. Just then the system suddenly prompted, detected other constellations direct subordinate approaching Ophiuchus. The other's divine position makes Ophiuchus's position more sharp. Current position progress increased to 35%. Meanwhile, Sophie had run to a dark alley. The terrifying magical power that had just frightened her, wanting to devour her, was just like the fear she felt when facing Li Jian back then. Thinking of her embarrassing behavior just now, she turned and ordered her subordinates to kill everyone in the exchange in the surrounding area, especially the person who made her feel uncomfortable. As she spoke, she bestowed her pendant necklace to her subordinate. She also stated, "This is not just my will but the sacred god's decree." Then she went to the rooftop, preparing to enjoy the beautiful night scene that was about to unfold. The woman in black mobilized all her magical power to activate the sacred artifact, Cup of Forgetting. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light shot up from the ground. Then, all the people in the city were trapped in suddenly appearing water spheres. Meanwhile, Li Jian looked with surprise at the water drops seeping from the ceiling. Suddenly, a water prison directly enveloped Qin Ming. A dagger was also pressed against Li Jian's throat. The woman said, "The Holy Lady feels uncomfortable because of you, although she ordered me to dispose of you. If you can buy our sacred artifacts at a high price, I can put in some good words with the Holy Lady." But unexpectedly, Li Jian directly crushed the dagger. He looked at the woman with disdain, then said, "Qin Ming, remember to claim compensation from them for the damages here." But Qin Ming was shocked at this moment. He had crushed the Aquarius sacred artifact with his bare hands. The angry woman immediately summoned water pythons to attack Li Jian. Li Jian only threw a light punch, instantly destroying the water python. Then he said with a mischievous smile, "Summon a few more? It feels good. It seems they've met a tough opponent today, but no matter what, she must eliminate him here." The woman in black immediately took out the pendant necklace bestowed by the Holy Lady. The next second, multiple orange-level water wool summons appeared out of thin air. Li Jian chuckled, "Haven't seen that guy in a while, didn't expect she prepared this for me." After saying this, Li Jian casually picked up 2 daggers from the counter. Then he charged straight in. Li Jian's attacks were fierce. The water wolves howled in pain. In combat mode, Li Jian became extremely excited. After several maneuvers, all the water wolves were eliminated. The woman couldn't believe that even the Holy Lady's summons were easily destroyed by him. After finishing everything, Li Jian looked at the woman and said, "Is it over so quickly? I'm not satisfied yet." Hearing this, the woman's pupils suddenly contracted. She felt as if she was being stared down by a fierce giant python. The woman said, "Just you wait," then fled in panic without looking back. Qin Ming stared at Li Jian's figure, finding it increasingly familiar. His demonic appearance just now and his frenzied fighting style like a madman were exactly like Li Jian's. Could he be Li Jian? Before he could finish speaking, Li Jian made a shush gesture. He told Qin Ming to keep these water wolf materials safe first. He had questions for him later. After witnessing the miracle, tears of excitement unconsciously flowed from Qin Ming's eyes. Then he respectfully saw Li Jian off. At this time in the Sky City, at the Drachma auction house, learning of everything that had just happened, the Holy Lady trembled in fear. So she sought out Leo Saint Stephen Mark, because he was the only saint who could surpass Li Jian. Only by joining forces with him was there a glimmer of safety. Just then, she suddenly saw Sagittarius Saint Yu Guo arrive. Sophie immediately showed a playful smile. She appeared directly behind Yu Guo, saying, "Long time no see, Yu Guo, it's not easy to meet you." When Yu Guo recognized Sophie, he told her with great disgust to get lost. Sophie just laughed and said, "Could it be you're going to disobey again? Do you want your children to die like your wife?" "Oh right, your wife isn't dead yet, but might as well be, all because of your incompetence." Hearing this, Yu Guo instantly channeled his magic power, his whole body covered in flames, then threw a punch directly at Sophie. However, this fierce punch was easily caught by Sophie. She said, "You should know your place." Then she activated water magic. But just as Sophie was about to cast her magic, she suddenly sensed a crisis that made her heart pound. She was about to turn her head to look, but was sent flying by Li Jian. Li Jian was surprised to see Yu Guo here. Yu Guo said, "I was worried about you, so I came." Li Jian hugged himself, saying, "Don't tell me you like me." Seeing the unconscious Sophie, Li Jian whispered, "Why is she everywhere I go? Could she like me too?" When Sophie woke up drooling, she found herself tied to a chair. This familiar kidnapping, and that familiar flick, reminded her of the fear of being dominated by Li Jian 20 years ago. Thinking of this, Sophie involuntarily realized the man before her must be Li Jian, but she was no longer who she was 20 years ago. If she could just find a way to cooperate with Stephen Mark. Before she could finish thinking, Li Jian's hand flicked her directly. He said, "Your scheming expression is too obvious." But Sophie laughed loudly, thinking Li Jian had triggered the acid protection she had placed on herself. Just one touch, and the acidic liquid would spread throughout the body until it completely corroded. Li Jian chuckled, his corroded finger instantly restored to normal. Sophie was bewildered. Not only was Li Jian alive and back, his abilities were even more powerful. Li Jian said, "I heard you claim to be my attending physician to seize my funds, and sent minions to kill me." Li Jian raised his hand again, quickly flicking Sophie's head 50 times, and Li Jian's experience level data also kept climbing, until Sophie passed out again. Only then did Li Jian satisfactorily withdraw his hands. It seems fighting them would increase experience points from now on. But why didn't he gain any experience when fighting Yang Wei before? Then, after Li Jian saw a text message, he told Yu Guo to just throw Sophie in any trash can. He needed to head to the auction house. They'd contact each other after the auction. However, as soon as Li Jian left, Liu Saint Mark arrived. Seeing the Aquarius holy lady tied unconscious to a chair, Mark's body sparked with golden lightning as he said, "Yu Guo, what have you done? Are you here for that sacred artifact too?" Yu Guo smiled and said, "Don't tell me you're still collecting those sacred artifacts made by Li Jian everywhere. You refuse to acknowledge his strength and remain in a state of inferiority, yet you're still collecting Li Jian's sacred artifacts everywhere. You don't actually believe that having those sacred artifacts will make you as strong as him, do you?" Hearing this, an enraged Mark immediately began to lose control. Just as the two were about to fight, a subordinate of Leo rushed over saying, "Big trouble. One of Li Jian's sacred artifacts was bought by someone from Gemini." Upon hearing this, Mark turned and left without looking back, while Yu Guo stood there with a cold expression. The hand that Mark had just grabbed was injured so severely, how could he even be considered half a saint now? Meanwhile, an ordinary large bone appeared at the auction, yet it sparked a bidding frenzy among countless people. As soon as the auction began, the price instantly shot up to 6 billion. It turns out that 20 years ago, during the Berlin Forest mission, the 12 saints had failed countless attempts at completing the mission. Only Li Jian returned victorious while holding this large bone. Therefore, everyone believed this was Li Jian's most powerful sacred artifact. Only Li Jian himself looked at the bone on stage with complete confusion. That was clearly just a slightly larger ordinary bone. Xiong Kai said with dissatisfaction, "That's Master Li Jian's sacred artifact. How can you be so ignorant?" Although Li Jian-sama's sacred artifact will become other people's collections, fortunately all the auction money will be transferred to Li Jian-sama's official account. Hearing these words, Li Jian suddenly felt excited about becoming wealthy just by sitting at home for one night. Meanwhile, as his prestige continued to soar, system data notifications kept popping up frantically. At this time, the Leo Saint was extremely excited, as this was the sacred artifacts he had been dreaming of. During these 20 years, he had been constantly searching for sacred artifacts related to Li Jian. He wanted to find out the secret of why Li Jian was so powerful. Now, upon encountering Li Jian's most powerful sacred artifact, he immediately shouted out an astronomical price of 60 billion. In an instant, the entire auction hall fell silent. Everyone gave up any thought of competing with his bid. Even the auctioneer was left speechless by this astronomical price of 60 billion. With the fall of the auction hammer, Mark got the bone as he wished, just as the whole venue was cheering for the Leo Saint. The next second, the entire auction house experienced a violent explosion. As the dust settled, a red-level, terrifying disaster misfortune gradually revealed itself. It stared intently at the bone in Leo's hands and mumbled unclearly, "Hand over the sacred artifact, or I'll send you all to your deaths." After speaking, it lunged fiercely at Mark. Seeing this, Mark immediately broke through the glass to take the bone. He hadn't expected to be able to test this sacred artifact's power so soon. Facing the attacking disaster misfortune, Mark channeled all his magical power and struck it flying. While he wanted to test the bone's power, the magical power he used unexpectedly knocked down a magic tower on the floating island. If the tower's debris fell, the entire floating island would plummet from the sky. Witnessing this scene, all the saints on the island gathered together. They combined all their magical power into one. Then, a beam of magical light shot up from the ground toward the debris, yet it still couldn't stop the debris from falling, just as the magic tower's remains were about to crash into the crowd. At this critical moment, a terrifying flame completely incinerated the debris. After the flames dissipated, people discovered that the one who intervened was actually the Sagittarius Saint, Yu Guo. Just when everyone thought they were finally saved, a disaster misfortune covered in bone fragments was slowly walking towards them. Black saliva continuously dripped from between its teeth. Its saliva seemed to have consciousness as it rushed toward the crowd, binding people tightly like ropes. Seeing this, Yu Guo quickly drew his bow to stop it. Suddenly, an extremely strong sense of mortal danger came from behind. It was the disaster misfortune that had just been blown away by the Leo Saint. It opened its mouth to bite him, just as Yu Guo was about to perish in its giant maw. At the crucial moment, Li Jian immediately arrived and kicked the disaster misfortune flying. Li Jian criticized Yu Guo for being too weak, which made him worried. Yu Guo said, "I did my best." Just as the two were arguing, Mark also rushed here quickly, while shouting, "You damn people want to ruin the testing of my new equipment? Don't you dare interfere with my debut with the bone," he said, as he arrived above everyone. Just as Li Jian was wondering what madness he was displaying, golden lightning crackled all over Mark's body. The next second, a golden light barrier enclosed Li Jian and others within. This was Leo's royal skill. Then, he confidently gripped the bone and walked toward the disaster misfortune. He was so confident that even disaster was frightened by his aura. After swinging the bone several circles, he struck down directly with one hit. But the disaster misfortune was completely unharmed. They looked at each other. Mark couldn't understand why. The disaster misfortune looked at him mockingly. Mark thought his swinging technique must be wrong. He picked up the bone again and started frantically smashing it against the disaster misfortune. Faced with such insulting attacks, the disaster misfortune became extremely annoyed. It directly raised its claw and swung at him. Mark really couldn't understand. He had clearly hit it. Why was the bone having no effect? Meanwhile, on the other side, all the saints who were contaminated by the disaster misfortune's saliva were under its control. Seeing this situation, Yu Guo had no way to intervene. However, Li Jian walked carelessly to the saints' front, directly forcefully tearing the slime off their bodies. This action left both the disaster misfortune and Yu Guo dumbfounded. What kind of technique was this? Yu Guo thought to himself. Sure enough, he never takes the conventional path. Li Jian mocked mocked Yu Guo, saying, "What nonsense are you talking about? Anyway, I'm the one who does all this. I never expected you to help." The helpless Yu Guo could only sigh. Subsequently, they emanated a thick and mighty aura. The long-absent duo once again joined forces against the enemy. Li Jian launched the first attack. The aura shook the surroundings. The disaster misfortune saliva couldn't bind him at all. He rescued the saints, then continued running towards the disaster misfortune. The disaster misfortune roared, but Li Jian's momentum didn't decrease. Yu Guo also began launching skills at the disaster misfortune at this time. Raging flames ignited around the disaster misfortune. Li Jian smiled wickedly, clenched his fist and struck at the disaster misfortune. The momentum was extremely grand, blasting the disaster misfortune into the sky. The disaster misfortune howled in pain. Instantly its head separated from its body. Seeing this, Li Jian smiled smugly. After the two dealt with this disaster misfortune, Li Jian's right hand gave off a cyan light. Immediately large amounts of data rapidly popped up. He gained a new skill, the fighting god instinct. Li Jian's lips curved slightly upward. He wanted to try this skill's power. With a ripping sound, Li Jian actually tore through Leo's royal skill with his bare hands. Mark looked at everything happening before him with disbelief. While the blue disaster misfortune instantly sensed a terrifying aura, it felt killing Li Jian was more urgent than snatching the sacred artifact, so it charged at Li Jian. Li Jian just raised his head and glared. A primordial force directly descended from the sky. It instantly smashed the disaster misfortune into the ground. Seeing this scene, Leo St. Mark froze in place. He felt only that person could have such power. Li Jian said, "You seem to have done quite a lot using my name lately." Hearing these words, Mark collapsed to the ground, his body trembling non-stop. The unwilling Mark still wanted to continue struggling. Then came a crack. What he had believed to be Li Jian's strongest sacred artifact was crushed barehanded. Li Jian said, "This is just an ordinary dog bone. You've worked hard too. For fairness, it should be my turn now, right?" One strike launched. The pressure dominated all directions. Debris was blasted up. Mark was struck into the sky. Seeing the huge crater that appeared, Yu Guo was completely dumbfounded. Li Jian acted like it was nothing, immediately brought out his golden piggy bank, told it to quickly pack up everything here, then took out his phone to search for a number, muttering, "Shengkai." Yu Guo froze when he heard this name. To prevent his children from meeting this guy, Yu Guo had always been very careful. Both his children were Li Jian's fans. If they knew Li Jian was still alive, then his happy family would be ruined. Yu Guo wanted to quickly take Li Jian away from here, but an excited voice came from behind. "Dad, is he really Li Jian-sama?" After Shengkai confirmed this person was really Li Jian, he quickly told his sister the news, calling her to come quickly. Because the siblings had been Li Jian's hardcore fans since childhood, they would watch Li Jian's battle recordings every night. That figure standing at the peak of mountains of disaster misfortune corpses had long been imprinted in their hearts. Now Shengkai excitedly pulled his sister to introduce Li Jian. After hearing her brother's introduction, he couldn't believe her eyes. She pinched herself hard. It was too incredible. Why had the master Li Jian-sama become so handsome? In her impression, Li Jian's face should have had several hideous scars, and he had been in the demon tower for 20 years. He should look even more disheveled than before. Unexpectedly, he was so handsome. Shengkai saw through his sister's thoughts at a glance. He said, "Sis, your inner thoughts are all exposed." The embarrassed He quickly bowed 90 degrees, stuttering as she introduced herself. Li Jian said, "No need to be nervous. You're Yu Guo's children, which makes you my nephew and niece." But at this moment, he actually blushed, although it was their first meeting with uncle. "If possible, please." However, before she could finish speaking, the ground rumbled with thunderous vibrations. Then, a giant disaster misfortune suddenly burst out from underground. Just as Li Jian looked confused, he turned and beheaded the disaster misfortune with one spear strike. She said, "Please wait a moment, uncle. After I eliminate these calamities, I will propose marriage to you." After speaking, she walked toward the calamities filled with killing intent. Shengkai hadn't expected his sister to be serious this time. Li Jian was even more dumbfounded on the spot. "Shengkai, what did your sister just say?" At this point, he had already charged into the group of disaster misfortunes invading the city, and she kept rapidly moving through them, leaving trails of afterimages wherever she passed. While the red lightning from her spear kept bursting outward, with extremely powerful momentum, she harvested the calamities on the field, yet still kept muttering, "Quickly, I want to eliminate them all, and then propose to uncle." She looked up at the endless horde of calamities, then stomped the ground fiercely. Instantly her body was covered in crimson lightning, the lightning attaching to her spear. She glared viciously at the disaster misfortune army before her and said, "Don't stop me from proposing." After speaking, she hurled her spear with all her might. The calamities howled in pain. Instant explosion. Seeing this scene, Li Jian was very pleased. His previous worries were really unnecessary. In terms of combat power, this girl was far stronger than Yu Guo. Now he also noticed Li Jian coming from behind, just about to greet Li Jian. But at this moment, an even more massive disaster misfortune opened its huge mouth to bite her. At the critical moment, Li Jian pulled He over with one grab. This disaster misfortune was extremely huge. Above it sat an eerie figure. The other party said, "How interesting. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful person among humans. I will turn you into my pet and train you well." Li Jian laughed and said, "Oh really? Perfect timing. I need a furnace for forging right now. You can be my furnace." But He's whole body trembled when she saw the suddenly appearing disaster misfortune. That was an extremely troublesome red-level disaster misfortune. Li Jian also understood this disaster misfortune's destructive power. He told the two of them to take care of the nearby civilians' safety. He He would be enough to handle this. Thinking about fighting alongside their revered Uncle Li Jian, they immediately excitedly unveiled their strongest forms. The disaster misfortune, who believed it could handle everything, laughed and said, "Tiny humans, kneel before my whip." Then she started frantically swinging her whip. Li Jian quickly dodged left and right, but unexpectedly he was instantly bound by the whip. Seeing this, the other party laughed and said, "Now this feels like proper training." Then she grabbed Li Jian and frantically smashed him into the surrounding walls. The walls collapsed with a boom. However, such chaotic attacks had zero effect on Li Jian. Seeing this, the disaster misfortune gritted her teeth, directly ordered her mount to fire flame bomb at Li Jian. In an instant, a mushroom cloud of enormous power rose into the sky. Meanwhile, Liu He and Shen Kai had finished evacuating all citizens. Seeing the terrifying explosion in the distance, Liu He also started to worry. Uncle Li Jian was indeed strong, but the opponent has an extremely high danger level. Moreover, Uncle Li Jian had been in the Demon Tower for so many years. What if there were after effects? Thinking of this, she immediately rushed toward Li Jian's direction, but Li Jian was still standing firmly at the explosion's center. This left the disaster misfortune beside him completely confused. Enraged, she directly burst out all the magic power in her body. After a blinding flash of light, her whole body was covered in heavy armor, and her back gained a pair of purple wings. She said, "I have to admit you're the first person to make me go all out. Although it's a pity, but keeping you as a pet would be too dangerous." After speaking, she charged up, but what she hadn't expected was that hellfire of such terrifying power would be blocked by mere plastic gloves. Li Jian smiled and said, "Daring to start fires in the city, you'll spend your life atoning for your sins by tending the fire in my blacksmith shop." But at this moment the system suddenly prompted. The disaster misfortune's resistance consciousness was too strong, cannot be claimed as property, needs to be purified. Li Jian received the prompt and immediately smiled. "Purification? You mean this?" Speaking as he swung purification fists at the disaster misfortune in a barrage of fierce hits. The disaster misfortune was quite tough, not making a sound even after the intense beating, until seeing the system's prompt. Li Jian finally stopped. Seeing this, Li Jian looked at the lizard disaster misfortune beside him, and said, "No choice, the gas furnace is destroyed, have to make do with you." The lizard disaster misfortune was so scared it immediately surrendered. Then Li Jian came up with several names for it to choose. The lizard didn't dare delay, directly chose the first name, Torch. Afterwards Li Jian came to the siblings and asked if they were injured. But Liu he said, "Compared to that, I have something more important to say." Li Jian then remembered she seemed to want to propose to him earlier. He coughed dryly, unable to say a word. Liu he suddenly said, "You didn't actually sacrifice yourself in the Demon Tower back then, did you?" Hearing this, Li Jian was stunned, hadn't expected her to ask this. She said, "Actually, I've always been suspicious about this matter. Other saints said you sacrificed yourself for humanity, yet they all returned safely. Until seeing you today, I'm certain you weren't self-sacrificing. You must have been framed." Hearing this, Li Jian sighed, as expected of Yu Guo's daughter, such sharp intuition. Then Li Jian told them everything that happened in the Demon Tower 20 years ago. After hearing it, the siblings were shocked. Shen Kai angrily said, "You're the world's strongest saint. How could they do this?" Li Jian pointed at Shen Kai and said, "Because I was far too strong compared to them. I alone could kill the Red Eye. So after I slayed the disaster misfortune leader, I would become the biggest obstacle to their world domination." Seeing the siblings sad and upset, Li Jian quickly consoled them, "Don't cry over this, because I will definitely settle this score." Then Li Jian took out his phone. Today is Sophia's final deadline. Meanwhile, at the press conference, Aquarius Saint Sophia revealed to the world the truth about what happened in the Demon Tower 20 years ago, Li Jian's elimination of the Red Eye disaster misfortune, and the real situation of Li Jian being harmed in the Demon Tower. With these words, the scene erupted in chaos, reporters strongly requesting her to explain in more detail. But at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Sophia. Upon seeing who it was, she started trembling in fear. It was Cancer Saint Louis Moran of the 12 Saints. He looked at Sophia with a sinister smile and said, "Now it should be quite difficult for you to continue the press conference, right?" Then he leaned to Sophia's ear with an evil smile and whispered, "Isn't it good to just be a well-behaved saint like before? Why must you make such a scene? If you don't want to broadcast to the world the sight of your mouth being torn apart, then stay quiet and behave." After speaking, he walked to the stage and said, "The saint just now was forced to give false testimony due to some threats. Everyone rest assured, from now on I will protect the saint." Today's press conference ends here. But the reporters wouldn't give up. They wanted to know who could threaten Sophia, and some things about Li Jian. At this point, Louis said with murderous intent in his eyes, "Li Jian already died in the Demon Tower. What more explanation is needed?" The reporters continued asking, why would that person use Li Jian as an excuse to threaten the saint? Louis instantly became impatient. Then black energy started gradually gathering in his hand. However, a foot suddenly appeared to Comer saying, "Looks like you're planning to kill the reporters too?" Then directly kicked Louis into the wall. Sophia was dumbfounded. Li Jian really came. Li Jian charged in front of Louis again and said, "Long time no see. Your wrinkled face hasn't changed a bit. Accept my gift." Then violently slammed him into the ground. But Louis wasn't injured by Li Jian's attack. Li Jian immediately saw this was Louis' clone, saying, "You're making clones again." These words surprised Louis. Li Jian had seen through his clone technique at a glance. He said, "Who exactly are you?" Li Jian smiled and said, "Who else could I be? I'm Li Jian, of course." With these words, the whole scene was shocked into silence. Then everyone burst into laughter. People said, "He claims he's Li Jian. How is that possible? This is too funny." Even Louis beside them laughed, saying, "You do have have some strength, but even if you want to impersonate someone, you should choose better. Before he could finish speaking, Li Jian gave him another hit, then looked at the onlooking crowd and said, "What are you staring at stupidly? Hurry over here," then pounced toward the crowd. At this time, Sophia wanted to escape from here. Unexpectedly, a thick tail directly blocked her path. Li Jian said, "Where do you think you're going? You need to tell the truth about everything." However, at this moment, strange black mist appeared throughout the hall. At the same time, the system's prompt suddenly rang out, "Beware of the dark aura." Now the eerie black mist was rapidly spreading with Louis as the center, while a huge black shadow gradually emerged behind him. "Hee, so it really is you, but it doesn't matter. Although, I don't know how you survived the demon tower. Since you're back, I'll first hold a simple welcome ceremony." He slammed the ground and shouted, "Abyss spikes!" Then, a surge of dark energy tore open a dark chasm in the ground. Seeing this, Li Jian quickly dodged to the side, but Louis let out a strange laugh and said, "You fell for it." Large patches of darkness instantly spread under Li Jian's feet. In a flash, numerous sharp spikes emerged from the darkness, attacking Li Jian. At the critical moment, Li Jian directly pulled out a blade to block. Successfully landing safely, Li Jian's whole body immediately sparked with lightning. He instantly shot like an arrow, leaving its string toward Louis. Seeing this, Louis still tried to resist, but this time, no matter how many dark spikes he summoned, they couldn't stop Li Jian's advance at all. In a flash of lightning, Li Jian directly slashed Louis' chest with one strike. But the next second, Li Jian sensed something was wrong. Louis' body dispersed into black mist in the air. Li Jian angrily roared to the sky, saying, "In these 20 years you've only learned to make clones?" But immediately after, an even more fierce dark storm gathered behind him. Meanwhile, streams of black mist shot out from the storm, entering all the reporters present, finally turning them all into Louis' clones. Seeing this, Li Jian's eyes flashed cyan, saying, "You've made such a mess here. Have you thought about how to deal with it?" However, a confident Louis clone looked at Li Jian and said, "Better deal with you first while we have the chance." He thought Li Jian wouldn't harm these clones, because once these clones were dispersed, the reporters would disappear too. After speaking, Louis directly ordered these clones to swarm forward. However, the next second, all clones froze in place. It turned out the Li Jian they had just attacked had become the disaster misfortune lizard's tail. This was the skill Li Jian acquired when fighting Mark at the Drachma auction house, able to summon any object as Ophiuchus's shield. Taking this chance, Li Jian directly came before Louis' clone and gave him a punch. He sensed this was Louis' advanced clone. Once he was eliminated, other clones would automatically vanish. Then, Li Jian pulled hard. A black crystal core was yanked out by him. When he threw the core into Ophiuchus's mouth, he received the system's prompt, Cancer's crystal core fragment, possessing 20% of the Saint God's divine power. Absorbing the internal energy can gain Cancer's power. The Cancer Saint God now looked somewhat panicked. After Li Jian eliminated Louis, everyone began to regain consciousness. Meanwhile, Louis' gradually disappearing advanced clone was puzzled about what Li Jian had experienced in the Demon Tower. Why did Li Jian possess the aura of a deity? He decided to retreat for now. He had left a surprise for Li Jian anyway. Just then, Li Jian suddenly received a call from Yu Guo. It turned out that, on live TV, Yu Guo had witnessed Li Jian's entire battle with Louis. At this time, he scolded Li Jian. "Why did you destroy Louis' advanced clone? This action would cause Molmort, known as humanity's ultimate weapon, to descend upon your location." Li Jian frowned. This was quite a serious situation, though he himself feared nothing. But there were still hundreds of thousands of innocent citizens in the area. At that moment, he noticed Sophia trembling with fear beside him. He then cheerfully told Yu Guo not to worry, as he had a plan. So, Li Jian dragged Sophia and rushed toward the sky, 10,000 meters high. Then he activated the teleportation function of Gemini Captain Badge, instantly appearing right in front of Molmort. Feeling the wild surge of vital energy within his body, Li Jian laughed maniacally. "Don't you possess the ability to turn anything into liquid? Now's your chance to show it off." Then he threw Sophia toward Molmort. At that moment, Sophia wanted to burst into tears and curse Li Jian loudly. The Aquarius sacred gods, sensing its saint in danger, immediately appeared behind Sophia. Seeing the situation, the sacred gods was terrified and called Li Jian a madman. The sacred gods quickly bestowed all enhancement skills upon Sophia. Then it deployed Aquarius's royal skill, Goddess's Tears. In an instant, a tremendously powerful water vortex surged toward the approaching Molmort. At the moment of impact between the two forces, the Aquarius royal skill exerted all its divine power to diminish Molmort's strength. Finally, after several minutes, Molmort disintegrated in midair. By this time, Sophia was completely exhausted and fell weakly toward the ground. Li Jian laughed. With so many enhancement buffs, she definitely won't die from the fall. Then Li Jian looked at the fragments falling from the sky. If these fragments fell to the ground, the people below would suffer greatly. At this thought, he decided why not send these to Witch Paula, giving her a grand welcome back greeting. He immediately contacted Yu Guo, asking him to quickly lend him the Sagittarius skill, Absolute Coordinates. Absolute Coordinates allow specific objects to be moved to designated locations. Hearing Li Jian's urgent tone, Yu Guo transmitted the skill without hesitation. After receiving the skill, Li Jian activated the Gemini Badge teleportation function again, locking onto the Gemini Yin-Yang Palace. He used Absolute Coordinates to transfer the falling debris onto the teleportation array. On the ground, having finally escaped danger, everyone cheered. Meanwhile, 100 miles away, fragments of Molmort continuously fell upon the Gemini Yin-Yang Palace. On the other side, upon learning of everything Li Jian had done at the press conference, each country's leaders hastily convened an emergency meeting. But at that very moment, Li Jian descended from the sky, bringing Yu Guo and the Gemini captain with him. Seeing everyone's shocked faces, Li Jian smiled and said, "Hurry up and return my property." The people, intimidated by Li Jian's aura, huddled in corners like scolded housewives. Li Jian continued, "I originally appointed Yu Guo as my authorized representative, but when I returned, I couldn't access my accounts using Yu Guo's authorization. Isn't that strange?" Looking at the demonic Li Jian, a counselor tremblingly explained. After Li Jian's disappearance without a saint in each country, they couldn't easily trust any saint. Moreover, Sagittarius had weakened due to various incidents. Given the circumstances, they had revoked Yu Guo's authority and entrusted it to someone more trustworthy. Hearing this, Li Jian immediately punched him. He never imagined these idiots would choose Witch Paula as the authorized representative. Li Jian angrily questioned, "What right did you have to ignore Yu Guo? Yu Guo is my slave. I can ignore him, but you cannot." At first Yu Guo thought Li Jian was standing up for him, and felt somewhat touched. But as Li Jian continued to belittle him, Yu Guo thought to himself, "Stop talking, you madman. Don't I deserve some dignity?" Seeing Yu Guo in tears, Li Jian mistakenly thought he had moved him emotionally, and tried to comfort him. Next, Li Jian threatened them to return his property. But just then, a powerful magical storm instantly swept through the entire meeting hall. The Gemini Saint Heike appeared. She said, "Because of you, our Yin-Yang Holy Palace is destroyed. Do you know how much that cost? Forget about getting your property back. I'll use your money to repair my Yin-Yang Holy Palace." However, Li Jian scratched his chin and asked with confusion, "Hey auntie, who are you?" Heike bit her lips. Being called auntie really upset her, and she decided to teach him a lesson. She spread her hands, and a brilliant purple magic array instantly appeared. The system indicated that the Gemini Saint was using the summoning skill to communicate with a powerful spirit. Then, a mysterious female figure slowly emerged from the array. She was the Fairy Queen, Ray Queen, summoned by Heike. Heike looked at Li Jian, laughing maniacally, and said, "This is the Fairy Queen with power approaching that of Sacred God. Let's see how you handle this." However, before she could finish speaking, Li Jian instantly appeared before Heike, then grabbed her, and threw her high into the sky. The Fairy Queen stared blankly at Heike flying upward, frozen in place. She knew she couldn't handle this person, and was about to retreat back through the array, but Li Jian grabbed her out of the array, saying, "Trying to sneak away? Do you think everyone's a fool?" Just then, Heike, having completed her aerial circuit, crashed heavily to the ground. But as a purple haze dissipated, Heike transformed into a completely different appearance. Li Jian chuckled, as if he had known all along, then glared fiercely at everyone present and said, "Hurry up and give me back my money." After retrieving his property, Li Jian and Yu Guo left the meeting room. But Yu Guo asked confusedly, "You destroyed her Yin-Yang Holy Palace, so why didn't the real Heike appear?" With her terrible temper, she would typically unleash meteors on the city when angered. Li Jian smiled. "She definitely wouldn't just take this lying down. She must be trapped somewhere and can't get out. I think I know where she is." Soon, Li Jian arrived at Shen Kai's home. He took out a box and said, "Let's begin the interrogation." The box contained the Fairy Queen Ri Queen. Li Jian looked at the Fairy Queen with a mischievous smile, saying, "You'd better tell me everything honestly." The terrified Fairy Queen nodded repeatedly, indicating she would fully cooperate. Li Jian asked, "The witch hasn't appeared yet. Is she trapped somewhere and can't get out? And that place is Shen Kai's home, right?" Hearing this, the Fairy Queen was startled but stuttered, unable to speak clearly. Seeing this, Li Jian immediately put on a fierce expression. The Fairy Queen was terrified and slowly pointed. Li Jian walked over, picked up a statue, and revealed a playful smirk. "No wonder I sensed a foul odor coming from here." He directly deployed his skill, the 13th sense, on the statue. As his mental power gradually infiltrated the soul world within the statue, Li Jian's statue emitted Heike's furious cursing. "Right, Queen? How could you tell him I'm here?" Heike, in her soul state, was on the verge of tears. Everything had been planned perfectly, but why had it all gone wrong? It turned out that the moment Li Jian emerged from the demon tower, a sudden aura made the Gemini Saint shudder to her bones. Heike sensed that this aura must be from Li Jian, and it had gone to the home of Yu Guo's child. Fortunately, Shen Kai was a Gemini acolyte. To confirm if this person was indeed Li Jian, she decided to verify in person. Fearing she might alert him, she directly used soul transfer to possess the statue. But unexpectedly, Li Jian immediately broke the statue she had possessed upon entering. The shattered statue caused her possession skill to malfunction, making her unable to leave. Han Ji, feeling sympathetic, thought the statue was a sacred artifact and planned to repair it. Heike, hiding in the shadows, was elated. If the broken statue was restored, she could escape. However, Han Ji pulled out super glue, completely shattering Heike's hopes. All was lost, truly over. This way, she really couldn't escape. Until now, when Li Jian discovered her, the furious Heike shouted, "Ray Keen, think of something to help me escape." Ray Keen said, "I'm helpless too. Li Jian is right there." Hearing this, Li Jian smiled knowingly. "Good, you understand your situation." At this moment, Heike noticed Shen Kai was also at home. She seemed to grasp at the last straw. She told Shen Kai to attack Li Jian and then free her. But Shen Kai looked completely confused. He was a devoted fan of Li Jian. He said, "I would never help you against Lord Li Jian, and I'm quitting the Gemini Sacred Group." Then he took out his Gemini badge and threw it on the ground. The next second, the entire room began to rumble. Shen Kai was paralyzed by a terrifying pressure, with black blood flowing down his face. Then he collapsed to the ground. Heike shouted, "This is the sacred god's punishment. Quickly apologize to the sacred god. You're my candidate. The sacred god will forgive you." Then attack Li Jian immediately. Despite facing the sacred god's pressure, Shen Kai refused to follow Heike's orders. Since childhood, he and his sister had idolized Li Jian as their hero. Other saints only talked about saving humanity but abandoned people in times of crisis for their own benefit. Only Li Jian always rescued people in danger. This enraged the Gemini sacred god, who extended a giant hand to strike Shen Kai. At the critical moment, Li Jian stepped forward to block it. He instantly activated his skill, Abyss Slasher. It seemed as if a line of fate was severed with one slash. Simultaneously, across the world, all Gemini acolytes suddenly lost the power bestowed by the sacred god. It was as if Gemini's magic had instantly evaporated. Even Heike could no longer feel the sacred god's power. This was the new skill produced when Li Jian fused Cancer Saint's royal skill, severing the abyss. It directly cut the contractual connection between Heike and the sacred god. Hearing this, Heike immediately panicked, knowing the sacred god would not let this go. When sacred gods intervene in this world, they risk much and consume significant resources. Thus, sacred gods transmit their power to their representatives, who then distribute it to acolytes. However, Li Jian was completely unconcerned, because only by doing this would the sacred god truly descend. As the two argued, a purple storm descended directly from the sky, forming a massive magical tornado that destroyed everything around it. When the storm tornado dissipated, an immensely large figure gradually appeared. She was the Gemini sacred god Freya. Facing Li Jian's contempt, the Gemini sacred god was determined to display her divine powers. Against Freya's all-out attack, Li Jian directly took out Cancer Crystal Core Fragment and absorbed all the sacred god's attacks. Upon detecting other sacred god crystal core fragments, Freya was astonished, as the crystal core fragment in his hand absorbed enough of Gemini sacred god's divine lightning power. Li Jian instantly summoned the creation workshop, intending to craft a temporary weapon. The next second, a black storm scythe was created. Due to the creation workshop's low level, the crafted scythe was only a one-time consumable item. Then Li Jian chuckled, immediately activating the Ophiuchus divine skill, the fighting god instinct. Taking the storm scythe, he slashed at the Gemini sacred god, along with Freya's painful roar to the heavens. The black scythe in Li Jian's hand instantly shattered. Witnessing this, the three people could not believe their eyes. They never imagined Li Jian's attack could harm a sacred god. Now enraged, Freya lost her reason. She hadn't expected to be injured by a human. The furious Freya immediately waved both hands, and several space gates appeared behind her. Beyond the teleportation gates was her summoned army of 1,000,000 soldiers and beasts belonging. At the critical moment, a huge fireball descended from the sky, instantly interrupting Freya's summoning. When the light faded, the figure of the Sagittarius saint, Yu Guo, gradually appeared. "Stop, Freya. Continuing would violate the rules. Have you forgotten that sacred gods cannot descend to this world in their original form?" Freya remained unconcerned, laughing maniacally, saying, "What can the weakened Sagittarius sacred god do now?" Yu Guo knew that the current Sagittarius sacred god, and he couldn't do much, but he wasn't worried, because it wasn't just him who was dissatisfied with the Gemini sacred god's actions. Just as other saints directly sealed Freya's space transmission, a golden array suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, a chain shot out from it. It was the sacred gods activating the endless chain to bind her. If Freya wanted to continue intervening, the hostility of other sacred gods would reach its maximum. Freya was very reluctant and said to Li Jian, "I will never forget what happened today." Li Jian remained unconcerned, even raising his finger mockingly. "What can you do to me? Next time, remember to bring your brother too." As Freya retreated in reluctance and rage, Li Jian received a system notification, gained a large amount of experience, promoted to level 9. After reaching level 10, a special trial will be unlocked. After all this, Li Jian looked at Yu Guo and asked, "Did you get back what I asked you to retrieve from the Gemini Holy Palace?" Yu Guo then pulled out a scroll from his bag. Seeing this, Heike was completely bewildered. She never imagined that Yu Guo, as a saint, would engage in such petty theft. The scroll recorded 4 legendary attribute gods: the one-eyed light warrior Belsek, the white god's light warrior Wang Yar, the king of giants Jodan. The 3 attribute gods all expressed their willingness to surrender to Ophiuchus. Even the legion commander attribute imprisoned under the yin-yang palace in the seabed expressed surrender intentions. Li Jian was indifferent to their surrender, but wanted to see their sincerity first. But the next second, a vortex appeared above Li Jian's head. Then, Heike's physical body fell out of the vortex. Seeing this, Li Jian laughed heartily, saying that since this was the case, he'd only accept their surrender. At this point, Heike was bewildered again. She simply couldn't believe it. This must be a nightmare. Li Jian grabbed Heike's neck and said, "Your sacred god has fled." leaving only you behind. You'd better answer my question well. Was it you who ambushed me in the demon tower? Heike looked confused, indicating she knew nothing. Li Jian knew that without some harshness, she wouldn't comply. Instantly, a powerful magical force eroded her soul, causing her to scream in pain. Virgo, it must be Virgo because she has Tiangong's verdict on her hand. Li Jian smiled. You should have said so earlier. Alright, I'll give you back your body. However, before Heike could react, her body suddenly stood up. She embraced Li Jian, who looked teasingly at Heike's soul and said, Sorry, I made a mistake. Your body was accidentally given to Rhea Queen. After Li Jian defeated the Gemini sacred god Freya, all the attribute gods under her surrendered to Li Jian, and continuously flattered him with praise. Yu Guo, somewhat surprised, said, Attribute gods are extremely arrogant. This situation is unprecedented. As soon as he finished speaking, all the attribute gods pointed at Yu Guo and cursed, You're just an employee, don't get ahead of yourself. Hearing this, Yu Guo froze in place. At this moment, Li Jian promptly corrected the attribute gods' mistake, saying, You seem to have a misunderstanding. He's not an employee but my slave. Hearing this, the attribute gods looked down on Yu Guo even more. A mere slave, daring to appear directly before Lord Li Jian. Seeing this, the siblings couldn't contain their excitement. As expected of Uncle Li Jian, even such high-level attribute gods bow and scrape before him. Nearby, Liu he couldn't help but smile and said, Fortunately I proposed to Uncle earlier. The two stood there in shock. Li Jian panicked. Yu Guo was dumbfounded. He leaned close to Li Jian's ear and questioned, What's going on? What does my daughter mean? At this moment the rabbit doll Yang Wei said, Is Yu Guo becoming Li Jian's father-in-law? This is ethically chaotic. Hearing this, Yu Guo took out his bow and arrow, and shot through Yang Wei's rabbit head. Li Jian wiped his sweat and tried to calm Yu Guo down. At these words, Yu Guo became even more furious, and launched a barrage of fierce attacks at Li Jian. The angry Yu Guo glared at Li Jian and said, I treated you as a brother, served as your deputy, and you want to be my son-in-law? The more Yu Guo thought about it, the angrier he became. He used his clone technique and launched continuous shots. However, these dense arrows were easily crushed by Li Jian. Seeing this, Yu Guo became even more furious, and finally decided to release Sagittarius's royal skill, Solar Divine Ring. Yu Guo and Shen Kai were truly father and son. Despite being impoverished, they would still burn down houses when angry. As Yu Guo's technique was about to complete charging, the siblings quickly ran to stop him, saying, Old man, you can't defeat Uncle Li Jian. You have no chance of winning. Hearing this, Yu Guo lost his fighting spirit like a frostbitten eggplant. Seizing the opportunity, Li Jian approached Yu Guo from above and gave him a punch. It wasn't until several hours later that Yu Guo slowly opened his eyes. Li Jian said, The children don't understand. Why did you need to get so angry? Do I look like the kind of person who would seduce a friend's daughter? They're just shy to express their feelings to you. To comfort you, they specifically bought gifts. As he finished speaking, the Shunkai siblings brought 2 cakes. Yu Guo looked at the cakes before him and was moved to tears. Seeing that there were no strawberries on the cake his daughter brought, Yu Guo looked at Lu He and said, Daughter, why aren't there strawberries on Daddy's cake? Lu He smiled, Sorry Dad, I gave all the strawberries to Uncle Li Jian. Hearing this, Yu Guo immediately charged toward Li Jian, frantically trying to grab the cake from his hands. Just then, Liu he suddenly received an urgent assembly order. The red-level disaster misfortune Thousand Claws had appeared at the Sky Bridge. From this moment on, all acolytes must respond to the call. A few days later, near the coast of Milani, the capital of Country B, nearly half of the constellation acolytes had gathered. They included the magically talented Pisces, the Taurus tribe known as the strongest defense, the Aquarius tribe with holy power capable of resisting atomic bombs, the Leo zodiac renowned as battlefield beasts, and the Capricorn zodiac responsible for manufacturing and enhancing various equipment. The Leo zodiac leader was enthusiastically giving a pre-battle motivational speech. Although their saint, Mark, had disappeared for half a year at the drachma auction, they wanted to use this opportunity to let the world know that Leo was still active. In a tent not far away, an old man wearing glasses was busy researching the equipment in his hands. His face revealed a sinister smile. Meanwhile, on Li Jian's side, he suddenly received a strange goat head statue. Without hesitation, Li Jian immediately threw it up and smashed it to pieces with a hammer. This statue was made by the Capricorn saint Vladimir. He was also a forger. Since Li Jian's disappearance, almost all top-tier equipment in the world came from his hands, but his forging skills were far inferior to Li Jian's standards. Yu Guo asked Li Jian, Won't you listen to what he wants to say? Li Jian replied that it would all be nonsense anyway. On the other side, Vladimir cursed. He still has the same bad temper. It seems cooperation is impossible. At this moment, an acolyte stood outside the tent and said, Holy Lord, it's time. Vladimir said, Is it? It's time to see what Thousand Claws really looks like. Just as Vladimir summoned a hammer, Li Jian, watching the live broadcast, immediately widened his eyes. This old guy not only stole my things but dares to show them off. I'm leaving immediately to deal with him. Elsewhere, just to suppress the disaster misfortune Thousand Claws, the Leo Zodiac leader gave the order, and everyone immediately rushed toward Thousand Claws. However, at that moment, Mark, still grappling with Thousand Claws, shouted, Stay put until I extract the bone. Seeing this, Liu he was speechless. This fool was really causing trouble. she was instantly covered in red lightning and transformed into a red light that rushed forward. Other acolytes, seeing the Holy Lord rescued, immediately became excited and unleashed their strongest techniques against Thousand Claws. But just then, an even more terrifying supergiant red-level disaster, 10,000 Claws, suddenly appeared. Not far away, outside a tent, Vladimir chuckled. He had a detonation device in his hand, but before he could detonate it, a blade instantly pierced his palm, destroying the device. Then, slime directly bit him. From the spatial gate that appeared behind him, a figure slowly walked out. It was Li Jian, who said, "Long time no see." At the same time on the battlefield, Liu He also detected the suddenly appearing 10,000 Claws and knew she couldn't let it join the fight. She had to hold it back first. Since childhood, Liu He had watched videos of Li Jian dealing with disaster misfortunes. She'd seen the strategy for 10,000 Claws countless times. Quick passage through small tentacles. Tentacles that couldn't be ignored were cut off with one strike. Once close enough, deliver a fatal blow. She arrived above the disaster misfortune, channeled all her magical power into her spear, and threw it toward the disaster misfortune's eye. But to her great surprise, her full strength attack was blocked so easily. Before Liu He could make a move, disaster misfortune's attack was about to strike. At the crucial moment, Mark immediately shielded her. However, disaster misfortune's powerful force still sent both of them flying. Just as Liu He was about to lose consciousness, she thought, if it were Li Jian, he would definitely charge forward with his sword like this too. But in the next second, she was startled awake, because the newcomer was indeed Li Jian. He charged directly toward disaster misfortune and struck with one slash. After a series of maneuvers, disaster misfortune was defeated by Li Jian. The people watching from the shore were frozen in astonishment, but some saints were dissatisfied with Li Jian, claiming they could have eliminated this disaster misfortune themselves. However, a tentacle suddenly appeared, wrapping around Li Jian and pulling him away. The next second, it swallowed him whole. Everyone was shocked. Who could possibly defeat this monster? But at that moment, a sharp blade pierced through disaster misfortune's head. Disaster misfortune roared in pain. Li Jian drilled out directly from disaster misfortune's body, and disaster misfortune perished on the spot. After emerging, Li Jian smiled and said, "Come taste this delicious sea cucumber." The reporter broadcasting from a distance crouched down in fear. When people around the world saw the returned hero defeat disaster misfortune, they cheered endlessly. At this moment, a book appeared in Li Jian's hand. The Bible of Ophiuchus had been generated. The saints read it aloud to increase Ophiuchus's power. Li Jian approached Liu He and asked if she was injured. Liu He responded with a sweet smile. Li Jian said, "I broke your spear when I used it. I'll forge a new one for you." Hearing this, Liu He became extremely excited. Mark, who suddenly appeared, happily exclaimed, "That's great." Li Jian responded with an annoyed expression. "Are you crazy? Why are you shouting?" Mark pointed at Liu He and said, "She is the Vice Saint Lord of our Leo, my direct subordinate. If you're making a weapon for Liu He, then of course you should make one for me, the Leo Saint, as well." Hearing this, Li Jian grew increasingly angry and was about to curse at Mark, when suddenly several kilometers behind them, there was a thunderous boom. A huge green mushroom cloud shaped like a ram's head rose into the sky. Immediately after, a green mist instantly engulfed everyone. The beast transformed saints who inhaled the mist went into a frenzy and began slaughtering members of other saint groups. At this moment, Vladimir, piloting a robot, approached Li Jian and the others saying, "How do you like my masterpiece?" It turned out that before the battle against disaster misfortune, all Leo saints had taken enhancement drugs developed by Vladimir, and these drugs had a chemical reaction with the smoke dust and molemort. In this state, the Leo saints would only obey his whistle commands. Vladimir looked at Li Jian with an evil smile and said, "You look quite good when pinned to the ground." The enraged Mark told the old man to quickly restore his subordinates. Vladimir threw Li Jian's sword in front of him and said, "If you want your subordinates restored, do as I say, kill Li Jian." Seeing that Mark didn't respond, he continued, "I understand your position, and I'm sure you understand mine as well, because we have something in common, the sense of inferiority caused by Li Jian. The strength of Li Jian is like an invisible wall standing in front of you, and his forging ability similarly stands in front of me. He is like a peak we can never surpass. The more we struggle to compete and exceed, the more we feel it's insurmountable. Now an excellent opportunity lies before you. Just kill Li Jian, and I will forge the strongest divine weapon ever created for you. Then it won't be difficult for us to become the strongest group among the 12 saint groups." Hearing this, Mark picked up the sword and walked to Li Jian. "Can we really become the strongest? Really?" Meanwhile, the excited Vladimir thought everything was about to end. Suddenly, Mark turned and stabbed, piercing Vladimir's mecha heavily. Mark said, "You turned my brothers into that state and thought I would listen to you? Old goat, don't compare me to yourself. I don't waste time on inferiority. I've already surpassed Li Jian now, I just lack a good weapon. I'm not like you, feeling so inferior that you want to kill Li Jian. How could weapons forged with your mentality possibly surpass those made by Li Jian?" Hearing this, the enraged Vladimir directly manipulated his mecha to strike Mark. In a flash, his mecha arm was instantly destroyed by Mark's counterattack. Seeing this, Vladimir quickly retreated and rose into the air, then fired several missiles at Mark. The continuous explosions and smoke engulfed Mark. Just when Vladimir thought the Leo Saint wasn't much after all, the beast transformed transformed Mark burst through the smoke. Empowered by his beast form, he concentrated all his magical power in his arms, and instantly activated his skill, Caesar's Claw. Vladimir's mecha was completely shattered. Mark followed with another heavy stomp. He glared fiercely at Vladimir and said, "You sure have a lot of mechas?" Just as Mark was about to tear open the armor, Li Jian appeared beside the two and said, "When will your fight end?" His words frightened the two who were engaged in fierce combat. Then Li Jian kicked Mark away with one leg. Actually, Li Jian had been pretending to be captured, wanting to know what Vladimir was up to. But after waiting for a long time, these two kept fighting endlessly. The impatient Li Jian knocked down the saint who was controlling him with one kick. Li Jian looked at Vladimir and said, "We should talk about what happened in the Demon Tower 20 years ago." Hearing this, Vladimir began to recall. It turned out that the day before the Demon Tower raid 20 years ago, a man found Vladimir and told him Li Jian would die in the Demon Tower. Vladimir knew about this. Wasn't this the prophecy Yu Guo received from the Holy God? The man laughed. "I want to make this prophecy a reality." Vladimir was extremely happy. If Li Jian died, he would become the strongest forging saint. He rambled on so much that Li Jian became impatient. Li Jian asked, "Who exactly was that man?" Vladimir said, "I can tell you, but you must guarantee my safety." As soon as he finished speaking, Li Jian grabbed his chin and said, "You'd better understand the current situation. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll rip out your tongue." Vladimir trembled and said, "It was Virgo." Li Jian was stunned. This matched the answer he got from the witch Paula. "It seems necessary to meet Qin Ming and check the identification results of the sword that wounded me. First matter settled, now let's talk about the second. You've had my forging hammer for 20 years, it's time to return it." Under Li Jian's intimidation, Vladimir had no choice but to return the forging hammer. Then Li Jian flicked his finger, instantly summoning the 3 attribute gods he recently subdued, saying, "Take this old goat to your dimensional space. If he resists, break his limbs." Vladimir finally realized Li Jian wasn't in the same system as the other saints. He was the holy god who controls the constellations. After 2.5 hours, all controlled saints were restored to consciousness. When the Capricorn zodiac leader learned his lord had been captured by Li Jian, he became mentally unstable. He ordered his subordinates to launch Molmort missile attacks against Li Jian. In a flash, Li Jian raised his forging hammer and struck hard, turning the Molmort missiles into fireworks. Seeing the fleeing Capricorn disciples, Mark asked Li Jian for a powerful weapon to deal with them. Li Jian chuckled, grabbed Mark and swung him, directly knocking the fleeing saints flying. Li Jian looked at Mark and said, "Indeed, the hand feel isn't great." Meanwhile, in Virgo's jurisdiction area of Country X, a Virgo team was conducting a rescue mission. 2 days ago, a patrol team in this area suddenly lost contact. They rushed to rescue immediately after receiving orders from superiors. Just then, cries for help came from ahead. The rescue team hurried over, but the captain felt something was wrong. The cries sounded mechanically repetitive. When he looked back, he found his team members had already vanished. The cries for help suddenly sounded from behind him. A disaster misfortune appeared out of nowhere. By the time he reacted, it was too late. It turned out that 10 years ago, Shen Kai and his mother were waiting in a station hall. Suddenly, the lights in the entire waiting hall went out. Li Ziyuan discovered a large amount of strange red mist appearing out of nowhere. When he looked at Shen Kai and his mother, he was shocked. Behind them, outside the window, appeared an incredibly huge disaster misfortune. But the mother and son hadn't noticed. At the critical moment, he rushed forward and pushed them away. Amid the cries of Shen Kai and his mother, this first Sagittarius Saint group leader was swallowed by the disaster misfortune. Faced with the terrifying disaster misfortune that appeared out of nowhere, everyone was too scared to move. Shen Kai's mother immediately picked up her son and fled. Due to the chaos at the scene, Chen Jiu could only place Shen Kai in the car first. She said, "Let's stay strong and wait for Dad." But the next second, she was carried away by a vine. As the boy cried incessantly, more vines were attracted. In the emergency, a ball of intense flames burned all approaching vines. The newcomer was the little boy's father, Yu Guo. Upon learning his wife and friend had been captured by the monster, Yu Guo became furious, his magical power turning into flames that filled his entire body. When he arrived above the monster, he saw his wife trapped on the disaster misfortune's back. He immediately rushed up to rescue her. His action also attracted the disaster misfortune's attention. It instantly shot out dozens of vines, striking Yu Guo, who had neglected his defense. Sensing the divine power filling Yu Guo's body, the disaster misfortune drooled. It began frantically absorbing the divine power from Yu Guo's body. At this life or death moment, a golden lightning bolt struck the disaster misfortune from the sky, and the other survivors were each encased in bubbles. Those who intervened were the representatives of Leo, Aries, Gemini, and Scorpio, 4 holy god proxies who came to support. Faced with the fierce attacks from several saints, it opened its giant mouth. The saints could hardly believe what they saw. This monster actually swallowed their attacks, and its injuries from the lightning were rapidly healing. It roared, and hundreds of vines shot out. Seeing this, Heike immediately cast a magic barrier for defense. But the destructive power of the disaster misfortune's vines was terrible. Soon, Heike was internally injured, and her magic barrier was about to break. At the critical moment, Libre Saint Giselle finally arrived. She used the golden rule to pin the toad disaster misfortune to the ground. Since her control skill couldn't bind it for long, she told Heike to use space magic to teleport the monster away first. Hearing this, Heike said, "Even so, it will reappear someday." Giselle said, "With our current power, we can't destroy it. better to send it away first. Just as the Toad Disaster Misfortune broke free from the restraint, Heiki's teleportation magic was finally activated. At this time, in a hospital room, a woman in a coma lay quietly on the bed. She was Chen Jiu, the mother of Sheng Kai and Lu He. Since that incident, their mother had been in a coma for over 10 years. Because of this incident, many citizens of Country H criticized Sagittarius for not only failing to eliminate the disaster misfortune, but also causing more casualties due to their inadequate abilities. As a result, Sagittarius lost many saints, and became the last-ranked constellation saint group. Suddenly a phone call interrupted Yu Guo's thoughts. Yu Guo said, "Today is an important day. I don't want to talk about work or accept any commissions." When he heard the words Bloodlight Mist, Yu Guo's eyes widened. The creature that attacked Country H's waiting room 10 years ago, Bloodlight Mist, had appeared again. Due to that incident, Yu Guo's wife and the first saint group leader remained in comas in the hospital, and half of his power had been taken by the Toad Disaster Misfortune. And through Yu Guo's narration, Li Jian finally understood everything. Because of this, the property authority granted to Yu Guo was also stripped by other saints. Li Jian said, "Since we've encountered Bloodlight Mist this time, let's end it. Revenge after 10 years. Yu Guo vowed that this time he would sever this cursed fate. Meanwhile, on the other side, Sheng Kai found Ray Queen. He hoped Ray Queen would help him open the door to Gemini's magic library. Although he had said he would leave the Gemini Saint group, he had to stay with Gemini to learn the soul summoning skill, to awaken his mother, and all those who sacrificed that day. Even if there was only a glimmer of hope, he wanted to try his best. Then Ray Queen used the Fairy Queen's authority to open the secret library's teleportation channel. After Sheng Kai entered the secret library, Ray Queen reported everything that had just happened to Li Jian. Li Jian finally understood why Sheng Kai refused to become an Ophiuchus saint. At this time, Sheng Kai quickly found the book he wanted to consult. The moment he opened the book, streams of magic formula runes flew out from the book. As he was carefully reading, a figure lurked behind the bookshelf sneakily. The next second, the book in Sheng Kai's hand vanished. That book instantly appeared in the hands of Yin Shiyu, the youngest son of the Libra saint. At this point, Sheng Kai had no time to waste with him, and immediately channeled all his magical power. But Yin Shiyu's face was full of mockery as he said, "You can be so arrogant in front of me only because of Li Jian. That being the case, today I'll let you know what despair truly is." Then he pulled out Libra's sacred artifact, the cross balance. With a blinding light, a three-dimensional image appeared before Sheng Kai. It was the live broadcast of the battle between Bloodlight Mist and Li Jian's group. It turned out that just now, Yu Guo had issued a retreat signal. When the Disaster Misfortune search team was verifying each group's numbers, they discovered that one group had mysteriously lost contact. Upon hearing this news, Yu Guo immediately became enraged, his body engulfed in raging flames. Li Jian said, "Don't lose your rationality. Just a little anger to boost your combat power is enough." As soon as he finished speaking, the entire ground began to shake, and many thick vines emerged from below. Then, a mountain-sized monster jumped up from underground. Seeing this, Li Jian immediately charged forward, stepping on the monster's face. With a slight force, the monster was sent flying back. Li Jian said, "So you're the one who made my friend and nephew suffer so much." The Toad Disaster Misfortune glared viciously at the human who suddenly appeared. It sensed that this human wasn't easy to deal with, immediately controlling roots to tightly wrap around Li Jian's lower legs. But Li Jian remained unmoved. Then, a surge of flames instantly burned away the vines. Yu Guo said, "Don't be careless. It can devour any magical attack." But Li Jian just chuckled. The next moment, Li Jian gathered his magical power to activate Ophiuchus' skill, Super Regeneration. His injured leg immediately recovered. Then he switched to his sacred artifact, the hammer. "Since it's so gluttonous, today I'll rip open its belly." Li Jian then raised his giant hammer and charged, delivering a heavy blow to the Toad Disaster Misfortune's head. Yu Guo also seized the opportunity to order everyone to draw their bows and shoot. Instantly, many arrows hit the Toad Disaster Misfortune. The Toad Disaster Misfortune knew this was disadvantageous, so it manipulated its roots to stab at Yu Guo and the others, forcing them to leap to avoid. Seeing everyone dodging so awkwardly, Li Jian immediately summoned slime, transforming it into a giant pair of scissors. "Let me help trim these annoying branches for you." Li Jian leaped high into the air, charging toward the Toad Disaster Misfortune. After several operations, the vines were cut to pieces. The Toad Disaster Misfortune cried out in pain. When everyone saw the Toad Disaster Misfortune piled on the ground like mud, they were all stunned. Was it over so quickly? It was simpler than imagined. Perhaps it was because Lord Li Jian was too powerful. At this moment, Yu Guo was in disbelief. This isn't right, it can't be this simple. Meanwhile, on Sheng Kai's side, Sheng Kai said, "Yin Shiyu, although your plan is great, Lord Li Jian's strength is beyond your imagination." Yin Shiyu laughed, "I underestimated them. Do you know why that Disaster Misfortune is so obsessed with eating? Because everything it devours becomes its power. You've experienced this, haven't you?" Upon hearing this, Sheng Kai was shocked. Yin Shiyu said, "Let's continue to enjoy this," as he activated the sacred artifact in his hand. At that moment, thousands of miles away, the Toad Disaster Misfortune's heart suddenly emitted a golden light. Its body rapidly recovered, and the city barrier not far away emitted a strange light. Li Jian sensed energy constantly gathering underground and slashed downward. He saw that the Toad Disaster Misfortune's roots had extended into the city within the barrier through underground pipes. This way, the entire city became its granary. Instantly, the Toad Disaster Misfortune's injuries were completely healed, and its aura was even stronger than before. Sheng Kai recalled what Yin Xiu had just said, as if he had witnessed all this before. Sheng Kai seemed to realize something. Suddenly, a childhood memory flashed in his mind. It's you. The one who caused trouble in the waiting room back then was actually you. The arrogant Yin Xiu covered his mouth and snickered. Congratulations, you're right. It's been so stifling to conceal this for 10 years. Even if you know, what can you do? Report me? Perhaps your father already knows I'm the culprit. But what can you do about it? Don't forget, my mother is Libra, the head of the 12 constellations, the strongest saint. Faced with such a deranged lunatic, Sheng Kai no longer wanted to waste time with him. He immediately headbutted him. Yin Xiu had no time to react, and was instantly knocked unconscious. Sheng Kai decided to escape with the magic book before he woke up. When Sheng Kai saw the Libra sacred artifact in Yin Xiu's hand, he immediately realized that Yin Xiu had used it to resurrect Bloodlight Mist. This thing should be useful for destroying Bloodlight Mist. Then he directly used the magic book to open a teleportation to the battlefield. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yu Guo was leading everyone in an arrow attack against Bloodlight Mist. The Toad Disaster Misfortune quickly wrapped itself with roots for defense. However, the next second, a swift beam of light directly cut off its roots. It was Li Jian using Ophiuchus's skill, Abyss Slasher. But immediately after, a tree root directly pierced Li Jian's arm. Li Jian merely frowned, then activated his skill, Super Regeneration. Soon after, a large number of tree roots attacked Li Jian. In the moment of crisis, Yu Guo immediately arrived, burning away the attacking roots. Li Jian, with his arm wound healed, punched with all his might, once again shattering the Toad Disaster Misfortune into pieces. But immediately after, the shattered Toad Disaster Misfortune began to reconstitute itself, instantly returning to a completely unharmed state. If they continue like this, the two would eventually be exhausted by this monster. So Li Jian directly activated his skill, 13th Sense, to detect its weakness. To Li Jian's surprise, this creature actually had 3 energy cores. Among them, the most active core was continuously devouring souls and life energy transported from the barrier. Upon learning this, he hurriedly told Yu Guo. Now the barrier protecting the city had become a cage imprisoning people. So Yu Guo directly ordered everyone to destroy the barrier. Unexpectedly, a large number of tree roots suddenly appeared, binding everyone from Sagittarius. The Toad Disaster Misfortune let out a great roar, and numerous red orbs appeared on the tree roots. The red orbs were actually the souls of victims controlled by the Toad Disaster Misfortune. Those souls floated toward the Sagittarius team. Meanwhile, on Sheng Kai's side, the Libra artifact changed his teleportation trajectory, sending him directly to a strange large tree. Seeing countless unconscious people having their life force frantically devoured by tree roots, Sheng Kai immediately noticed this strange large tree hidden behind the Virgo emblem. This tree must be the key energy hub supplying the Bloodlight Mist. He immediately channeled his remaining magical power to conjure a steel-armored warrior. With just a casual punch, half of the strange tree was destroyed. At this moment, Sheng Kai could no longer suppress his inner rage. It was because of this thing that his mother remained in a coma. It also took away most of his father's divine power, making him a laughingstock. And there was Uncle Zayuan's death, as well as the deaths of those innocent people. It was this thing that caused countless families to break apart. Under Sheng Kai's powerful punch, the strange red tree was heavily damaged again. Far away on the battlefield, the Toad Disaster Misfortune suddenly seemed struck by lightning. It sensed that the control hub hidden in the city had been damaged. No longer caring about anything else, it rushed toward the city barrier. Yu Guo, seeing the Toad Disaster Misfortune so panicked, guessed that some key point was affecting it. He then drew his bow and knocked an arrow, infusing it with magical power. Then, the golden arrow pierced through the Toad Disaster Misfortune's head. Before the Toad Disaster Misfortune could react, 3 more arrows pinned it to the ground. Immediately after, several golden ropes firmly bound it. Meanwhile, on Sheng Kai's side, after his all-out attack, the tree finally fell apart. As the strange tree was destroyed, the city barrier began to collapse. Having destroyed the Toad Disaster Misfortune's energy hub, Sheng Kai lay exhausted on the ground. The next second, scorching flames instantly illuminated the entire sky. Then, an even more terrifying wave of fire rushed toward him. An energy light appeared around Sheng Kai's body. It was the skill activated by the Ophiuchus artifact, Snake Spirit Shield. After the fiery wave disappeared, the entire city had turned into ruins. The one who had just launched such a terrifying attack was the Toad Disaster Misfortune. Now it had transformed into a fiery fire toad. The Toad Disaster Misfortune had discovered who ruined its plans through its tracking eye skill, so it immediately rushed over. Seeing that the Toad Disaster Misfortune's target was his child, Yu Guo instantly appeared in front of Sheng Kai, blocking the fierce attack. And now Yu Guo was having his divine power absorbed by the Toad Disaster Misfortune. His consciousness was gradually sinking, seemingly about about to fall into endless darkness, a dazzling light illuminated his heart. Long-sealed memories surfaced in his mind. Darling, we haven't taken a family photo in a long time. Let's go take one together. Wow, darling, your outfit is so cute. Thinking of this, Yu Guo immediately gritted his teeth and awoke. He absolutely couldn't give up. His family and Li Jian were all waiting for him. Just a little closer and he could reclaim everything. As Yu Guo was about to reach the energy core, a prompt sounded in his ear. Great Lord of Light, you have touched fragments of the Sagittarius sacred god. The fragments wish to return to their source of power. On the other side, Li Jian instantly emerged from beneath the buried rocks in the ruins. He swung his dual blades and charged toward the toad disaster misfortune. With one direct blade storm attack, he opened a large hole in its belly. He also saw Yu Guo struggling there, so he immediately jumped in, saying, "You fool, how much longer do you plan to stay in here? There are many things waiting for you to do." But after coming out, Yu Guo fell unconscious. Seeing this, Li Jian could only use his skill, 13th sense, to examine him. It turned out the energy Yu Guo reclaimed was slowly merging with his body. The power had been contaminated by the toad disaster misfortune, causing a rejection reaction, but the impact wasn't serious. He told Sheng Kai to take care of Yu Guo first. While he continued fighting, the toad disaster misfortune began to panic seeing Li Jian's stance. Li Jian jumped directly onto its head, then summoned his hammer, and delivered a strike directly at the toad disaster misfortune's energy crystal core. It knew it would die here today, so it decided to take a few down with it. Li Jian laughed. Yu Guo might be a bit foolish, but he's not weak, as several huge rocks were about to crush the father and son. In the next second, a scorching fire tornado filled the entire sky. It was the fully recovered Yu Guo using Sagittarius's royal skill, Sun God Ring. The scorching firestorm instantly condensed in the high sky, turning the rocks to ashes. The reporters broadcasting from a distance were also frightened, their eyes widened, while the Libra saint watching the broadcast frowned tightly. The crazed toad disaster misfortune wanted to seize Sagittarius's divine power again. A massive tree roots frantically climbed toward the figure in the sky. Yu Guo raised one hand. Annoying roots, disappear now. Suddenly, large patches of golden light descended from the sky, instantly turning the pitch-black night into daylight. It was Sagittarius's skill, Sky's Radiance. Li Jian saw this and chuckled, immediately using his exchange skill. Since it's already come to this, let Yu Guo finish it off. At this moment, Yu Guo directly drew his bow and nocked an arrow. In his mind flashed images of Sheng Kai crying as a child. He always believed it was his fault. If not for his crying, they would have left the waiting room earlier. Mom and Uncle Zai Yuan wouldn't have been hurt, and Dad wouldn't have been defeated by the monster. Yu Guo always wanted to tell him, Sheng Kai, none of this was your fault. With a thunderous boom, the toad disaster misfortune in the bloodlight mist was completely annihilated. Looking at the city turned to ruins and the 100-meter deep crater that appeared, Li Jian sighed. I didn't expect the destruction to be this severe. Yu Guo displayed a faint smile and said, thank you, Li Jian. However, when Li Jian took out a light orb, Yu Guo was stunned and asked, what is this? Li Jian said, I'm not sure either. I found it in the toad disaster misfortune's crystal core. He then opened his divine eye to examine it, discovering that a large number of souls were sealed inside. As Ophiuchus's divine power was infused, the orb began to crack. Then numerous light orbs instantly flew in all directions. Li Jian said, these are all the souls devoured by the toad disaster misfortune. Now they will return to their bodies and awaken. Hearing this, Sheng Kai excitedly asked, will Mom and Uncle Zai Yuan wake up too? Li Jian smiled. Yes, and happy birthday, Sheng Kai. Meanwhile, on Yinshu's side. Learning the situation, the man smashed a bottle against his head, then stepped on Yinshu's face and said, you can't even handle such a simple task. Truly useless. This man was the eldest son of the Libra saint, Yinshu's brother, Yin Taiyu. On the other side, everyone was busy with a post-blood light mist battle cleanup. Li Jian was checking the Ophiuchus panel. After resolving the blood light mist, his power trial was finally completed, and he received the reward of transforming his body into a divine body, though there would be some side effects during enhancement. This operation against the blood light mist was also recorded in the Ophiuchus sacred scripture. To Li Jian's surprise, there were fragments of the short sword in the blood light mist's crystal core. This indicated that whoever stabbed him in the demon tower was from the same group controlling the toad disaster misfortune, combined with intelligence he'd previously obtained from Qin Ming. The Virgo treasury contained a large amount of equipment with the same energy signature. Although all discovered clues pointed to Virgo, it seemed too coincidental. Li Jian decided that regardless, he would deal with them first. Li Jian had planned to set off with Yu Guo. Yu Guo said, rest a bit longer, not everyone is invincible like you. Li Jian unhappily said, you're all too fragile, everyone complaining about being tired. Li Jian asked why he didn't go back with Sheng Kai. Yu Guo just smiled. He didn't feel worthy of seeing his wife and Zai Yuan now. Whether it was Virgo or Libra, they both had major problems. Plus, what Sheng Kai had just said, Yu Guo decided that no matter what, he must find the mastermind behind all this. Li Jian looked at everyone and said, you all go back. Against Virgo, you'll only be burdens. Hearing this, everyone instantly drooped like frost-beaten eggplants. But Li Jian pointed at one person and said, you can stay. Gute was extremely excited, thinking Li Jian recognized his ability as the Sagittarius team leader. Actually, Li Jian just wanted someone to do odd jobs, as it was too dangerous for Sheng Kai to go back alone. In the current situation, there were many radical people who might cause trouble. Hearing this, Yu Guo couldn't sit still. Li Jian then took out a silver coin. Before Sheng Kai left, Li Jian had given him a silver coin as a birthday gift, because Li Jian had discovered through his divine eye scan scale, that Shun Kai's faith in Ophiuchus had already reached 300%. As long as he passed Ophiuchus's test, he could become an Ophiuchus subordinate and gain divine power granted by Ophiuchus, and this Ophiuchus silver coin was the key. Meanwhile, at the Virgo Council, the man was anxiously relaying a message to someone. The original plan could eliminate Legion and Sagittarius while framing the Virgo Saint, but now he was about to return. Before he could finish speaking, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly approached. The Comer burst through the tightly closed doors and said, "What is going on? Why did a disaster misfortune appear in Virgo's territory, and why was it Legion who resolved it?" The newcomer was the Virgo Saint, Kevin Azar. He said, "Since they've intruded into my territory, let's have an all-out fight." As several people were about to leave with murderous intent, to buy time, the bespectacled man said, "Holy Lore, I'll lead the way. I roughly know where Legion and his team went." But in his hand appeared a pair of contact lenses. Meanwhile, on the other end of the phone, the man hadn't expected Kevin to return so quickly, and hadn't expected he was care so much about Legion. The next phase of the plan had to be executed immediately. At this moment, the man found Legion and indicated he had a request. He was the head of the Virgo Inquisition, Perio. He said, "We need Lord Legion to eliminate the Virgo Saint. Virgo has fallen into chaos now. Kevin acts arbitrarily and has lost his authority. The fed-up Inquisition has decided to stop Kevin's tyranny, and your sacred artifact, Tiangong's verdict, has been privately hoarded by him. That's why we've come to you, hoping for your help, Lord." Just as Legion had eliminated all the Virgo Guardian subordinates and was preparing to enter the warehouse, Kevin finally arrived. He said, "Finally found you, Legion. You traitors are here too, planning to use Legion to eliminate me?" Hearing this, Perio was startled, thinking, has he discovered us? But when Kevin saw the Virgo subordinate shattered on the ground, he was stunned, immediately becoming angry and saying, "Who did this?" The next second, everyone present pointed at Legion. Kevin said, "I have one more reason to kill you, Legion." After speaking, Kevin directly drew his sword and charged at Legion. As Legion's physique was still in the process of transforming into a divine body, most of his power was unusable. The moment Kevin's Frost Winter sword appeared, Legion's hands and feet began to freeze. At the critical moment when the blade was about to hit, a splash of blood flew out. The blade had wounded not Legion, but Perio. Then Legion instantly appeared beside the two, directly hammering them both away. From the beginning, Legion had seen through this guy's problem using his divine eye. His faith in Virgo was only 3%, while his faith in Libra was 97%. Yu Guo said, "You betrayed Legion in the Demon Tower back then. Now you're betrayed by your own subordinate. How does it feel?" Kevin looked puzzled and asked, "What betrayal of Legion? What are you talking about?" Yu Guo said, "You stabbed Legion in the Demon Tower years ago and pushed him into the abyss." Kevin thought Yu Guo was slandering him and wanted to argue. The next second he was frozen in place, unable to move. His right arm and sword were tightly bound by golden ropes. The one who acted was Perio, and in his hand he held Libra's sacred object, the Golden Rule Cross Scales. However, halfway through casting the skill, Kevin sensed the danger, but his entire arm was bound by ropes, making escape impossible. In the moment of crisis, he could only cut off his own arm, then jumped out of the scales. Perio was stunned, then laughed maniacally. Although he couldn't use Kevin as a sacrifice, the saint's arm would still work for casting the skill. Perhaps torturing him slowly afterward would be more interesting. With the half arm as a sacrifice, a black hole appeared on the other end of the scale. Legion and the others wanted to attack to stop this, but it was too late. A strange space suddenly descended. Skeletal monster claws emerged from both sides of the ground. In front of the skeletal claws stood a 100-meter altar. Perio looked down at Legion and the others, chuckling. "Welcome to the burial ground I've prepared for you." The Virgo team immediately rushed forward to clear the traitors for Holy Lord, but the next second they froze in place because they couldn't feel the divine power granted by their deity. Even their Holy Lord Kevin had been disconnected from the deity. Not only that, but Yu Guo and the other Sagittarius members also couldn't use the power granted by their deity. Perio laughed maniacally. "This is a sealed independent space. You can't receive power from the deities." After speaking, he directly controlled the monster hands to attack everyone. Legion didn't care about that, picking up his hammer and charging forward. Seeing this, Perio immediately waved the sacred artifact in his hand. The next second, a spatial rift appeared in the void. Then more monsters transformed into hands tried to crawl through the rift, instantly rushing toward Legion and trapping him. Perio thought these monster hands could quickly deal with Legion, but unexpectedly, no matter how many hands there were, they couldn't take him down. Legion left, saying, "You're so naive. You think this level can endanger me?" The moment Legion finished speaking, the entire space developed several cracks. Beams of light shot in, piercing through the strange hands, and Legion's body emitted an extremely dazzling blue light. Meanwhile, on Shun Kai's side, seeing people in the hospital who had been in comas for 10 years due to the bloodlight mist wake up one by one. A smile appeared on Shun Kai's face, wondering if his mother and Uncle Zayuan had awakened yet. But a commotion suddenly interrupted his thoughts. The troublemaker had trampled a newly awakened patient under his foot. Seeing Shun Kai, he said, "So you're here. I've been looking all over for you." The newcomer was Yin Shiyu's brother, the Libra Saint's eldest son, Yin Taiyu. After speaking, he channeled magic power in his hand and struck. The situation was sudden. Shun Kai could only mobilize his remaining limited power to defend. Having depleted most of his magic power earlier destroying the Toe Disaster Misfortune's energy hub, without having recovered, Shun Kai was instantly heavily injured and sent flying, crashing through the wall of a hospital room. This room was where his mother was resting. After Yin Taiyu stealing the magical book, Shun Kai had no more strength to resist. Yin Taiyu raised one hand preparing to kill Sheng Kai, saying, "Go reunite with your mother in hell," with the floor collapsing. Sheng Kai and his mother fell directly from the hospital building. Without any magic power, he had no way out. Thoughts raced through his mind. Every time he faced danger, it was his uncle, his sister, and his father who helped him. This time without anyone's help, what could he do? Seeing his comatose mother falling with him, Sheng Kai immediately held her tightly. He said, "I can't give up. I can only rely on myself now. This time, I will protect mother." At that moment, a mysterious voice sounded in Sheng Kai's ear. "Master of Ophiuchus, welcome, you with the indomitable spirit. Now you have qualified for Ophiuchus's entry test. Do you accept?" At this moment, Sheng Kai no longer cared about anything else. As long as he could protect his mother, he was willing to do anything. The next second, Ophiuchus's divine power filled his entire body. Then they landed safely. Having gained power, Sheng Kai immediately rushed up and swung his fist at Yin Taiyu. With just one punch, Yin Taiyu fainted. Sheng Kai said, "I've had enough of all this. I don't want to lose any more family members, whether it's mother or Uncle Zayuan." He determined that from now on he would protect everything himself. Then the mysterious voice sounded again. "You have passed the test. The first saint of Ophiuchus is born." At the same time, a new chapter has been created in the Bible, Li Jian's Gospel. After Li Jian gained his first saint, Tiangong's verdict returned. His invincible warrior spirit was revealed once again. Li Jian's Ophiuchus Holy Spirit's divine power fully erupted just by familiarizing himself with the feel of his old equipment. The ground for several kilometers instantly split in two. The bottomless abyss shocked everyone present. Seeing this scene, Perio collapsed to the ground. Li Jian smiled. "Why aren't you struggling anymore? You're the high and mighty Libra lackey. Even an insect would squirm a bit." As Li Jian approached, Perio activated the Libra sacred object again. Commanded. The monsters all rushed toward Li Jian. Li Jian said wildly, "That's more like it." As Li Jian eliminated a large number of monsters, the sealed independent space was also severely damaged. Seeing Li Jian's vitality, Perio hadn't expected things to develop this way. Just as he was about to escape, Kevin raised his sword to strike him. But the next second, a strange black mist energy blocked the sword. Then the strange black mist transformed into a human shape. It was the Holy Lord of the Cancer, Luis Moran. He looked at Perio with a mocking expression and said, "Didn't you promise to eliminate them? Were you just trying to escape?" At this point, Perio was under his control and could only watch everything happen. Louis said, "Alright, I'll give you one more chance." After speaking, Louis Moran directly controlled his body to cast Libra's skill, Equivalent Exchange. Then, Perio transformed into a disaster misfortune composed of various strange monster hands. Li Jian discovered that his body enhancement had reached 85%. Once over 80%, the side effects during enhancement disappeared. This time he wanted to feel how much power he would have after being enhanced to a divine body. However, when he exerted half his strength, he froze. Meanwhile, outside the Virgo Temple, Qin Ming arrived after receiving Li Jian's notification. He thought the Holy Lord Kevin and Li Jian were still fighting in the temple. But the next second, the entire temple exploded. After the dust settled, not only had the temple disappeared, the entire Virgo sacred land had turned to ruins. Li Jian was shocked. With just 85% enhancement, it has such power. What will happen at 100%? It seems mastering this power will take some effort. An angry Kevin nearby said, "Li Jian, you madman, look at the damage you've done." Meanwhile, the Holy Lord of the Cancer was standing like a servant, listening to a reprimand. The person above said, "Not only did you fail the mission, they also saw you." Louis Moran replied, "Wasn't it you who asked me to capture Li Jian? I only did my best according to your request." The other person said, "Are you challenging me?" Then he raised a finger. Instantly, several golden chains bound Louis Moran, forcing him to kneel on the ground. Frightened, Louis Moran quickly explained, "How dare I be disrespectful in your presence?" The other person said, "I hope this composed attitude of yours will ensure your success next time." This person was none other than the Libra saint, Giselle Lawrence. She asked Louis Moran about his next plan. With cold sweat on his face, Louis Moran hurriedly said, "Kevin will try hard to defend his innocence, so their next destination should be the Scorpio." Meanwhile, after Li Jian and his companions dealt with the Virgo traitor, Kevin said that the one who harmed Li Jian in the Devil's Tower 20 years ago should be the Scorpio constellation. To prove his innocence, he directly brought Li Jian and others to Virgo's underground secret warehouse. These were things he discovered when investigating Scorpio 5 years ago. These weapons had the same runes and aura as the short blade that wounded Li Jian. Kevin determined that Scorpio had close ties with those who endangered humanity. But Lu Hei, who suddenly appeared, didn't think so. Lu He said she had been staying with Scorpio all along, and Haley had given her a lot of help. She believed the Scorpio saint wouldn't harm Uncle Li Jian. As everyone was arguing, Li Jian's stomach made gurgling sounds. Soon, everyone arrived at a restaurant. Lu He handed Li Jian a pen with Ophiuchus aura. Haley had entrusted her to give it to him. Surprisingly, this pen bore the mark of the recorder. The last part of Li Jian's Ophiuchus Holy God trial was the trial of wisdom, finding a recorder who could document the whereabouts of Ophiuchus. What surprised him was why this item would be in Haley's possession. At this moment, Qinming interrupted Li Jian's thoughts and said, "All the items in the warehouse have been confirmed. They are indeed the same as the dagger that wounded Li Jian, and several are related to Scorpio." Li Jian felt that everything seemed deliberately guided, like someone leading them on. From the beginning, all investigation results pointed to Virgo. This also led him to become suspicious of Kevin. Although he couldn't be certain, Li Jian felt Kevin probably wasn't the real culprit. As Kevin said, if he couldn't defeat Li Jian fair and square, doing these things behind his back would be meaningless. He asked Li Jian what he planned to do next. Li Jian said, since all signs indicate this is related to Scorpio. I also want to know why she asked Lu He to bring this pen. Sheng Kai has just become my saint disciple. It seems I won't see him for a while again. Hearing this, Lu He and Yu Guo were shocked. Yu Guo said, Li Jian, what did you just say? Li Jian laughed and said again, Sheng Kai is now my saint disciple, and he's the first one too. However, the next second, an even more intense chill came from behind. Lu He said, why wasn't it me? Perhaps Uncle Li Jian doesn't want to answer. I'll ask Sheng Kai. Then she took out her phone and sent a message. Sheng Kai, how could you do this to your sister, stealing Uncle Li Jian's first time? Meanwhile, on Sheng Kai's side, just as he had defeated Yin Taiyu, someone suddenly appeared, startling him. The person said, you are indeed extraordinary, Sheng Kai, to defeat the eldest son of the Libra Saint. As he finished speaking, the man changed back to his original appearance. It was actually the Gemini Saint leader, Kui Shenge. He immediately began channeling magical power using the magical tome. In an instant, he summoned Gemini disciples to surround Sheng Kai. He said, you must come with us. Then, he ordered everyone to use Gemini's soul summoning technique. Sheng Kai laughed and said, bring it on. I'm not who I used to be. With the appearance of a purple magic array, a large amount of magical power flowed into it. Even Sheng Kai's magical power was extracted. The next second, an elderly white-haired man with deer antlers flew out from the magic array. Kui Shenge broke into a cold sweat when he saw the old man appear. How could it be him? This was an existence that even the Holy Lord couldn't control. This old man was the strongest elf in history, the first elf king, Elysium. It turned out Kui Shenge had captured Sheng Kai to interrogate him about the whereabouts of Gemini Saint Heike. But what they never expected was that the combat elf summoned with everyone's magical power was actually Elysium. Kui Shenge couldn't understand why this great deity would be summoned. Even with all their combined magical power, it shouldn't be possible to summon the first elf king. The first elf king said, I did indeed sense the Gemini summoning wave, but what led me here was this young man's aura. Then he asked Sheng Kai, which holy god's aura do you carry? I've never felt it before, but this aura is very powerful. I now want to join your side. Sheng Kai was shocked because he currently belonged to Ophiuchus, which was led by Li Jian. Hearing this, Kui Shenge was greatly alarmed and extremely surprised. He hurriedly shouted, First Elf King, how can you do this? You are Gemini's attribute deity. Elysium said, why not? The connection with the Gemini holy god has long been broken. Even your holy lord has disappeared. What's the point of staying with Gemini? Just one sharp glance made Kui Shenge tremble all over. Learning that the first Elf King was on his side, Sheng Kai immediately felt invigorated. The next second, Sheng Kai froze because he couldn't feel any magical power flowing within him. But he heard a notification. Your Ophiuchus divine power has been depleted. Sheng Kai was bewildered. Why would this happen? The Elf King said, the magical power that guided me here couldn't have been all your strength, right? Sheng Kai said, if you know that, why don't you help resolve this? The Elf King blushed and said, we're not in that kind of relationship yet. We haven't established a contract. Kui Shenge laughed. Sheng Kai, give up on contracting with the first Elf King now. It's not too late to come with us. But the next second, a figure crashed through the wall, rushing toward him. Before he could react, he was slammed into the ground. When he saw who had attacked, Sheng Kai was stunned. Who dares threaten young Master Sheng Kai? Stay here forever then. This person was the first Archer Constellation Saint leader who had been asleep for 10 years, Li Zayuan. The Gemini group was somewhat afraid, but they thought there were only 2 people against them, giving them a numerical advantage. But then, several more figures descended from the sky. It was the entire elite force of the Archer Constellation who had arrived after the battle with the Blood Mist. Seeing everyone who suddenly appeared, Sheng Kai hadn't expected them all to come here. The surrounded Gemini members were terrified. However, the next second, someone cast a teleportation spell, instantly rescuing all the Gemini members. After they escaped, Sheng Kai let out a long sigh of relief. Then a voice came, long time no see, young Master Sheng Kai. This familiar yet strange voice reminded him of Uncle Zayuan. Although Sheng Kai didn't know how to express his excitement, it was wonderful that Uncle Zayuan had awakened. But when he heard a voice with a different emotion, Sheng Kai froze. Lu, he said, are you so shocked to see me? Did you do something to betray me? I already know you became Uncle Li Jian's saint disciple, and even the first one. Li Zayuan quickly helped deflect. Long time no see, Miss Lu He. I've awakened. The sudden appearance of Li Zayuan surprised Lu He. She said, oh my god, Uncle Zayuan, you really woke up. At this moment, Sheng Kai finally temporarily escaped his sister's interrogation. The Elf King also had the opportunity to complete the contract with Sheng Kai, making him the attribute deity of Ophiuchus. With the help of the Fairy King, Sheng Kai, with his magical power restored, immediately fled. Lu He noticed and immediately gave chase, saying, stop right there. Sheng Kai laughed and said, the birth order already let you go first. I won't let you be first to become Uncle Saint Disciple too. But as he landed, Sheng Kai stood frozen, looking ahead. Lu He thought he was injured from the jump. However, following Sheng Kai's gaze, she also froze in place, because a nurse was talking with a patient, and that patient was their mother. Their mother said, you've all grown up, have you been well? Meanwhile, learning that his wife had awakened after 10 years in a coma, Yu Guo was overjoyed. But when he heard that Gemini and Yin Taiyu had given Sheng Kai trouble, Yu Guo was furious, grinding his teeth. Li Jian asked, who is Yin Taiyu? Gute explained, Yin Xiu and Yin Taiyu are both children of the Libra Saint. They were the real culprits behind the Blood Mist incident 10 years ago. When Yu Guo obtained evidence and confronted the Libra Saint, Lawrence dismissed it, saying, what do children know? Making small mistakes is normal. She also warned Yu Guo not to dwell on this matter. She even threatened him to take responsibility for the Blood Mist incident, because most of of Yu Guo's divine power core had been taken by the blood mist. He didn't have the strength to negotiate with her at that time. Lawrence continued to threaten. You can also reveal the truth and go to war with us. Besides, it's normal for children to make mistakes. Don't you have children too? You should understand, right? This blatant threat immediately made Yu Guo think of Liu He and Sheng Kai. For their safety, Yu Guo could only endure and accept. After Gute's account, Li Jian finally understood. All these years his good friend Yu Guo had endured so much, and because of this, Sheng Kai and Liu He were forced to be sent to other saint groups, because the weakened archer constellation could no longer guarantee their safety. Fortunately, Sheng Kai had now become Li Jian's saint disciple. Then Li Jian looked at the Ophiuchus panel. With the appearance of the first disciple, the Ophiuchus mission had been updated. The Ophiuchus badge has been generated. Designate one person as the Ophiuchus saint, with a rank of at least double S Li Jian. Then looked at Yu Guo, who had just finished a phone call. Feeling uneasy under this direct gaze, Yu Guo wondered what was wrong. Li Jian said, Yu Guo, do you want to be a saint in my constellation? This sudden question confused Yu Guo. What? Me becoming your saint? However, the next second the archer holy god suddenly appeared. He angrily looked at Li Jian and said, are you trying to poach my people? Li Jian said, why so serious? I was just kidding. After appeasing and sending away the holy god, Kevin became displeased. He accused Li Jian of not inviting him, so Li Jian asked if he was willing. Kevin laughed proudly. I would never join. He even extended his left hand to mock Li Jian. Li Jian immediately gave him a frenzied rain of punches. While they were laughing and fighting, preparations for the teleportation array were completed. Due to disaster misfortune monsters, they couldn't establish a direct teleportation to Scorpio yet. They had to go to Leo first, then transfer to Scorpio. When they stood on the teleportation array, Yu Guo pointed at Kevin and asked, why are you coming with us? Kevin said, if Li Jian is defeated by someone else, I'll be unhappy. The first to defeat Li Jian must be me. So, until then, I'll eliminate all possibilities. When they arrived at the Leo constellation territory in Country M, they were speechless at Mark's enormous statue. Living in his own world all day, even self-admiration should have limits. But approaching cheers caught Li Jian's attention. Welcome to Country M, Li Jian. Leo constellation Saint Stephen Mark invites you. Li Jian sneered. Why should I go? Kevin also chimed in. When they saw the people beside Li Jian, several froze and whispered. As expected of Li Jian, he's even made two great saints his left and right protectors. Someone nearby thought he was afraid of their Scorpio Holy Lord, so he called them to unite. But as soon as he spoke, he was kicked and fell unconscious. A man quickly helped the unconscious person and begged Li Jian for mercy, then handed over an invitation. Meanwhile, at the Leo constellation headquarters, Stephen Mark exclaimed in shock, what? I have to compete with Li Jian? The Leo Saint group leader explained, Holy Lord, don't worry, you just need to show up. But Mark was actually panicking inside, knowing he was no match for Li Jian at all. The Saint group leader continued, Holy Lord, I know everything. When you attacked Thousand Claws last time, you were ambushed by Li Jian. It must be because Li Jian still holds a grudge from his defeat 30 years ago, so he took revenge. But Mark couldn't express his frustration. He knew his own capabilities. When he heard that media and guests would attend, Mark trembled all over. He directly suspected this person wanted to ruin him and take his place. Angry, Mark stood up to leave. The Saint group leader was about to call after him. Mark roared, do you need to ask when I go to the bathroom too? But after Mark left, the Saint group leader revealed a sinister smile. Shortly after, Li Jian and Mark arrived at the fighting arena. What made Mark relieved was that he had just worked out conditions with Li Jian. Although he didn't understand why Li Jian wanted to test these people's abilities. They could end the match in a draw, which was perfect for Mark. But a video clip projected on the screen caused an uproar throughout the venue. It was footage from 30 years ago when Li Jian deliberately lost to Mark. Anxious and flustered, Mark hurriedly explained to Li Jian that he hadn't arranged this. Li Jian said, I took your money and deliberately lost to you in the past and you still show it off? Mark said, I paid 50 billion for it, why can't I? Mark suddenly realized he had misspoken, and everyone whispered in astonishment. Kevin was shaking with anger. Yu Guo said, it's exactly as you heard. Li Jian donated that 50 billion to disaster areas. Kevin roared, he's willing to waste time fighting with that idiot. Why does he always refuse my battle invitations? With that, he charged forward with his long sword. Yu Guo quickly called Gute to stop Kevin. The Leo constellation group thought Li Jian couldn't win, so Li Jian called for help, so they also rushed up to support their holy lord. As many spectators invaded the arena, the fighting venue instantly became chaotic. But when Mark saw all the charging people being knocked down by Li Jian, he was completely dumbfounded. Then Li Jian looked at Mark and said, alright, your turn. If you hadn't provoked me with that old footage, I might have let you off. Hearing this, Mark immediately channeled all his magical power and charged at Li Jian. Unexpectedly, Li Jian directly punched him in the face, instantly sending him flying back. Before Mark could recover, Li Jian's fists came again. In an instant, dozens of punches landed on Mark's face. Just as he was about to give in, Kevin finally found his chance and rushed over. As he shouted about wanting to fight Li Jian, two figures flew toward them. It was Oliver, the Leo constellation leader who had been beaten up by Liu He. With a thud, he landed. Oliver, who had been a man, now suddenly transformed into a woman. She had used Pisces transformation technique, and she was actually the SS rank Pisces Saint Selbia. Seeing this, Kevin shook with anger. Every time he wanted to fight Li Jian, he was interrupted. But when he thrust his sword into the ground, a voice came. By the time he noticed, it was too late. His sword had pierced someone's chest. Coincidentally, this scene was broadcast worldwide. With this sudden development, everyone looked looked at Virgo St. Kevin. Kevin was also panicked, not knowing why this had happened. But the next second, he was startled. The stabbed person said, "How did you discover me, Kevin Azar?" Then the person who had just been stabbed emitted a dazzling light. Hearing this voice, Lee John gnashed his teeth and said, "It's you again, you waste Giselle Lawrence." The man rose like a puppet. Libra appeared behind him. The puppet said, "Long time no see. I never thought you'd survive the Devil's Tower." Lee John directly baited, "Whether it's the Virgo incident or the blood mist, your actions are as despicable as ever." The puppet controlled by Lawrence narrowed its eyes and said, "So what? That's why I hope never to see you again." The puppet then looked at Kevin and said, "Kevin, why was your sword thrust into Lee Jane's heart back then so useless?" Kevin instantly erupted in anger. "Lawrence, what trick are you playing now? Still trying to frame me?" The puppet laughed. "Don't deny it. Didn't you boast then that you had killed Li Jin?" Before the puppet could finish, a flame tornado instantly engulfed it. The attacker was Yu Guo. Yu Guo said, "Kevin, stay calm. Don't be fooled by his words. Don't you understand the nature of Libra's people yet?" The puppet waved a hand, and the flames immediately dispersed. Seizing the opportunity, Kevin rushed forward, but his sword couldn't penetrate at all. The puppet said, "Yu Guo, even if you've regained your power, these little flames aren't enough to burn me, and the blade needs to be sharper, Kevin." Then the mark on the puppet's forehead caught everyone's attention. Divine mark, a special mark bestowed by holy gods to their disciples. Disciples with the divine mark could connect with holy gods, using power equivalent to a saint. Now the puppet's power was almost equal to Giselle Lawrence herself. Just as everyone was at a loss for what to do, Li Jian cut down with a knife. The puppet said, "Unless you summon up a holy god, otherwise." Before he could finish, his mark chain instantly broke. Li Jian split it in half. Meanwhile, Lawrence never expected Li Jian could cut through the divine seat mark. Then she laughed. Since Li Jian had such power, the upcoming plan shouldn't be boring. When Li Jian cut through the divine seat mark, he also learned this technique. Since Mark was unconscious, Liu He, as Liu's vice holy lord, directly announced Li Jian as the winner. As Li Jian accepted everyone's celebration, Kevin curiously asked Yu Guo, "20 years ago, Li Jian didn't have holy god support, right?" Yu Guo asked puzzledly, "What are you trying to say?" Kevin said, "Li Jian shattered the divine seat mark with just his own power. He has no holy god, yet he's more powerful than all saints. Is it possible he's a new constellation holy god?" Meanwhile, Shunkai, hiding in the bushes, was discovered by a boy and ran away in fright. Since other saint groups wanted to restrain Li Jian's newly formed Ophiuchus constellation, Shunkai, as the first disciple, became everyone's target. While escaping, Shunkai noticed a fallen silver coin emitting light. The next second, Yu Guo was violently teleported over by Li Jian. Shunkai quickly hid behind his father, saying, "He must be here to assassinate me too." The boy explained, "I didn't do anything." But father and son didn't believe him. As the three argued, the dark night sky suddenly showered with light. Then, the archer holy god Apollo suddenly appeared, his sharp gaze fixed on the boy. He never expected a holy god would intervene. "Since you attacked first, don't blame me." His eyes flashed with red shimmer. Instantly, he summoned the Archer Constellation Bible. Then he wrote on it, "The night withdrew its grace of light. Humans under the night sky received no such blessing." However, the next second, the Archer holy god instantly vanished from the night sky. Yu Guo angrily said to the boy, "What did you do?" The boy laughed. "How can the sun appear at night? I just sent the holy god back." This boy with such abilities was actually Scorpio's recorder, Eugene. Then he modified the Archer Constellation Bible again. Suddenly, a spiritual pressure came, directly pressing Yu Guo down. Looking at the book in the boy's hand, Yu Guo suddenly remembered it was the sacred Bible that the holy god often read. That was a text only holy gods could read. How could he do this? Could he be? Now Yu Guo finally realized Eugene had modified the Bible's content. The Bible recorded the holy gods' deeds, equivalent to myths and legends. They would transform into the attribute power of the saint group. Only one type of person could read and write the scripture, the constellation recorder. Arrogant holy gods didn't allow people with such abilities to exist. Long ago, holy gods and attribute deities together eliminated all people with recorder abilities. Now Yu Guo finally understood why the holy gods suddenly appeared earlier. While Eugene continued to gloat, Li Jian suddenly descended from the sky. He directly stomped Eugene into the ground. He couldn't even be dug out. Then Li Jian looked at the disheveled father and son. Li Jian said, "I'm just a little late and you're already being bullied again?" And Eugene beneath his foot had already passed out. But when he woke up, but discover himself already tightly bound by slime. Li Jian looks curiously at Eugene and says, "Your ability is quite interesting, Mr. Constellation Recorder." Upon hearing the word recorder, Eugene is startled and says, "I don't know what you're talking about." Little does he know that Li Jian has already understood everything using his divine eye. After realizing his identity is exposed, he immediately uses Scorpio's skill to escape, then quickly flashes away from Li Jian. Eugene knows he can't possibly run away, so he flies directly toward Yu Guo and his companion, intending to take them hostage. However, before Eugene gets close, Li Jian quickly moves away while holding Jiayu. He's surprised, but since that's how it is, he should prepare for battle. As Eugene unleashes a series of sharp attacks, Li Jian's dodging movements become increasingly effortless. After several rounds, Li Jian lets out a yawn. This action infuriates Eugene to the extreme. Li Jian even sticks out his tongue to taunt him, while Jiayu, being held in Li Jian's arms, is absolutely thrilled. Shunkai says, "Mom looks very happy." Zai Yuan explains, "That's because she's also a devoted fan of Master Li Jian." Yu Guo, standing nearby, is not pleased at all. He tells Li Jian to let go of his wife right away. One person desperately chases and attacks. Another person dodges while sleeping with someone in his arms, and the third one cries loudly. Chen Jiu immediately shouts, "Husband, just wait a moment. If I don't take this opportunity, when will I ever have the chance to be held by Master Li Jian again?" Hearing this, Yu Guo heartbrokenly vomits blood. He directly lies on the ground, sobbing loudly. Eugene seizes the opportunity, wanting to repeat the same trick he used on Yu Guo. But when the words "unable to view" appear, he immediately becomes alert because the opponent is a new constellation without records. However, in the next second, a large hand comes at him, instantly slamming him into the ground. The one who struck was the attribute deity that Li Jian had previously subdued. Then Li Jian looks at Eugene and says, "Come join my sacred group as my recorder." But Eugene doesn't agree. Since that's the case, Li Jian snaps his fingers and makes his move. Just as the attribute deity's giant sword is about to pierce down, a crimson scorpion tail directly blocks it. The one who intercepted was Haley, the Scorpio Saint. She looks at Eugene and says, "Always so impulsive, haven't I always told you to be more careful? Don't you know how dangerous such recklessness can be?" However, a voice comes through, startling Haley. "Long time no see." When she turns around, she finds Li Jian already standing in front of her. Scorpio's authority god reprimands Li Jian for disrespecting his holy lord, while Haley is already trembling nervously. She quickly turns her head away, but her face is already turned completely red. She then loses her balance and kneels directly on the ground. Sheng Kai and Chen Ji look at all this in surprise. Eugene also feels something is strange. How did the Scorpio Saint suddenly become like this? Is this still the Haley they know? Haley hurriedly tries to calm her inner nervousness. Li Jian should be in Leo territory right now. Why would he appear here? Then she secretly turns her head to look at Li Jian behind her. Li Jian has always thought Haley disliked him, just like 20 years ago, always hiding whenever they met. Li Jian speaks up, "What are you freaking out about? I still have questions for you." But this scene appears completely different in Haley's eyes. Her heart races wildly, as if Li Jian is about to confess to her. Li Jian grabs her shoulders and tells her to calm down, making her face turn even redder. Li Jian keeps shaking her, telling her to wake up. Before long, Haley has passed out with a completely flushed face. Li Jian says with frustration, "Do you dislike me that much? Looks like I can't confirm the information with her now." Then Li Jian says to Sheng Kai, "Come here, let me help you take a look." Sheng Kai says excitedly, "Okay uncle, what do I need to do?" Li Jian says, "Nothing, just prepare to receive the baptism." Because after Li Jian slew the Libra puppet last time, he not only learned the divine mark, but also received a new mission to baptize the disciples. The first disciple to be baptized will receive an incredibly huge benefit. Sheng Kai says he's not ready yet. He feels such a solemn ceremony should be preceded by bathing and changing clothes. However, in the next second, the baptism ceremony directly begins, and a dazzling light instantly shines forth. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself in boundless darkness, followed by a mysterious voice. "Are you the human who wants to become Ophiuchus' first disciple?" Sheng Kai says, "Yes, I am ready to follow Ophiuchus." As soon as he finishes speaking, a sacred and solemn light appears behind him. When Sheng Kai turns around, he sees stars suddenly light up and connect with each other. As the starlight connects, an immensely huge body gradually appears. Sharp scales emerge on its surface. A moment later, a boundless towering giant python appears directly in front of Sheng Kai. As the giant python opens its enormous mouth, the dazzling light disperses much of the darkness. A human figure suddenly appears. Sheng Kai wants to see this person's appearance clearly, but the blinding light only allows him to see the outline, which resembles Uncle Li Jian. This person merely glances at Sheng Kai, then sends several streams of divine power flying toward him. The divine power instantly enters Sheng Kai's body. Subsequently, Sheng Kai suddenly opens his eyes. The baptism ceremony is finally successfully completed. Li Jian withdraws his palm and smiles. "How was it?" Sheng Kai is extremely excited. Not only has he awakened as a complete Ophiuchus vanguard, he is also certain that Uncle Li Jian is the sacred god of Ophiuchus. Haley, who has regained consciousness, staggers to her feet and says, "Li Jian, congratulations on having your first disciple." After completing the baptism for his disciple, Li Jian's baptism and 13th sense skills are upgraded. He looks at Haley and says, "Are you in better spirits now?" Then he directly activates his skill, the 13th sense, on Haley. The terrifying sacred god pressure sweeps across the entire scene. Li Jian reaches out and grabs Haley. Scorpio's attribute deity wants to stop him but is blocked by Li Jian's subordinates. Li Jian sighs, "Why didn't you dodge?" Haley says, "I'm not arrogant enough to think I could dodge a sacred god's attack and you won't harm me." Li Jian says, "Why does your power have the aura of unknown disaster misfortune? Has a Scorpio sacred god been kept in the dark by you as well?" Seeing disguise was exposed by Li Jian, Haley directly admits that her origin is indeed from an unknown civilization, but she considers herself human, and also indicates that she is on Li Jian's side. Hearing this, Li Jian doesn't doubt her, but when he asks how she can prove it, Haley is stunned, as she doesn't know how to prove it. Li Jian chuckles and orders Slime to produce a questionnaire. After seeing the questions, Haley doesn't think they're difficult. She then quickly writes down the answers, while Li Jian and Slime reveal mischievous grins. After receiving Haley's questionnaire, Li Jian examines it carefully. Although she doesn't understand why Li Jian asked her to fill this out, she wants to know how Li Jian will judge her true intentions. But she has forgotten that Li Jian possesses a pen that can write all truths, and this pen was given to Li Jian by Lu He at her request. Seeing the pen return to its original form, Haley suddenly becomes flustered, her face turning extremely red. Question 1. What are your thoughts about Li Jian? Haley's answer is comrade, but through the truth pen, Li Jian sees a different answer. So handsome, I like him so much, that's why I betrayed the unknown civilization and came to his side. Question 2. What kind of relationship do you want to establish with Li Jian? When Li Jian is about to read the answer, the embarrassed Haley quickly rushes forward to stop him. Li Jian is stunned by the answer. Haley's subordinate says, "It's because of you. Our princess betrayed her own civilization and stood on the side of humans." Haley says, "Stop talking, take Eugene, let's leave." Because she's too embarrassed to stay here any longer. Li Jian immediately says, "Where do you think you're going? I haven't finished asking yet." The shy Haley has no choice but to obediently remain in place and wait. Then Li Jian takes out the short sword that once wounded him and says, "What else do you know about the origin of the unknown civilization's weapons?" Haley says, "This is a weapon with the power of a monarch's aura. The so-called monarch is the highest level in the unknown civilization. They infuse their power into weapons, allowing their subordinates to complete assassination missions. Unknown civilization weapons carrying such power can threaten sacred god-level beings. So even when you were stabbed by such a weapon, you couldn't resist. This is an extremely dangerous thing. Over the years, whenever I encounter them, I collect and seal them." Li Jian finally understands why Kevin found a large number of such equipment when investigating Scorpio. At this moment, Gutse notices an issue. 20 years ago, Master Li Jian eliminated the Red Eye, but could there be more leader-level beings in the unknown civilization? Kelly indicates that the Red Eye is not the ultimate disaster misfortune. There are at least 3 more disaster misfortunes of the same level as the Red Eye. Hearing this, Li Jian isn't surprised, because in the Demon Tower he killed someone who called himself the Administrator, and he had said the same thing. Yu Guo says, "Li Jian, did you hear that? There are actually 3 more monsters like the Red Eye." Li Jian smiles, "Don't be afraid. No matter who stands in my way, I'll cut them all down." Then he says to Haley, "I believe you're on our side, but I want him." Hearing this, Haley is startled but immediately agrees. Soon, Li Jian and the others return to Scorpio's hospital, and Eugene has changed from Scorpio's recorder to Ophiuchus's recorder. Having become part of Ophiuchus, Li Jian tells him to start working seriously. Eugene still thinks that after completing the constellation's record, he'll make Li Jian regret giving him the Bible. When the recording of the Bible is completed, the sacred god's deed 5 also appears. The recorder who denied the sacred seat becomes servant to Ophiuchus. Eugene chuckles, "Let me modify this a bit." Deed 5 is directly rewritten by Eugene too. The recorder who denied the sacred seat, Ophiuchus, becomes his servant. Eugene laughs triumphantly at his successful scheme. "Li Jian, kneel before me and tremble." But in the next second, he is met with Li Jian's fist. He can't understand why Li Jian can still attack him. Li Jian grabs Eugene's head and turns it to one side, because Yu Guo's wife Chen Jiu is also a recorder with recording abilities. On the other side, Libra's St. Lawrence learns that not only has Scorpio's saint joined Li Jian's camp, even the recorder has become his disciple. Although Li Jian's forces are continuously expanding, his enemies are also increasing. She immediately orders her subordinates to closely monitor Li Jian's situation. Upon learning that Yin Xiu has already gone to monitor, Lawrence becomes furious. Since this useless son has already taken action, she'll give him one more chance. Meanwhile, on Li Jian's side, Eugene is exhausted from writing Ophiuchus's Bible and collapses on the ground. Despite this, the pen in his hand continues to work automatically. Due to Li Jian's enhancement and Eugene's blood, the pen has developed self-awareness. Even if Eugene is unwilling to continue working, the pen writes automatically. At this moment, just as Yin Xiu, who is hiding behind the door monitoring, is about to make his move, Kevin suddenly kicks open the door and rushes in. He shouts, "Li Jian, come out and explain. Why did you leave me alone in Leo territory?" When Li Jian and others appear, they not only see Kevin, but also see Lawrence's son Yin Xiu, who is pressed to the ground by the door. Li Jian thinks Kevin brought him, but Kevin says he doesn't know him at all. Upon seeing Yin Xiu, Yu Guo can't contain his inner hatred, and when Kevin learns that he is the culprit behind the blood mist, he immediately draws his sword, determined to avenge his severed arm. Haley believes Lawrence must have sent him to assassinate the recorder. Li Jian steps on Yin Xiu's face and says mockingly, "Kid, this time you're done for." Seeing this intimidating group, Yin Xiu is terrified and can't think clearly. He immediately calls upon his attribute deity to help him escape. Facing the appearance of ropes, Li Jian doesn't stop him, but instead shows a smug smile. In just the blink of an eye, Yin Xiu successfully escapes with the help of his attribute deity. Yu Guo wants to chase after him but is stopped by Li Jian. Li Jian smiles. "Catching just him would be too disappointing. What I want is far more than just him." Meanwhile, in Libra's luxury resort, Yin Taiyu is receiving treatment from Aquarius's attribute deity. Yin Xiu falls from the sky and crashes down. Learning that his brother has botched another mission and exposed their identity, Yin Taiyu curses loudly, "Idiot, you always mess up mother's tasks." He doesn't know that Yin Xiu's hatred for his brother has reached its peak. Soon the two arrive at an underground room. They stop in front of shelves filled with crystals. These are all energy crystal core from disaster misfortunes. They plan to sacrifice them all at once, intending to use the exchange skill to summon a high-level disaster misfortune to deal with Li Jian. At the moment the skill is activated, a golden light beam shoots into the sky. The golden light gradually dims, and quickly turns into a dazzling cyan light. Then a figure slowly emerges from the cyan light. The moment the figure appears, Yin Xiu immediately feels fear. He quickly hides behind Yin Taiyu. In the next second, a hammer flies out from the cyan light. With just a brief encounter, encounter, Yin Taiyu passes out. "So you two are hiding here," Li Jian says, raising the small bird in his hand. "I picked this up on my way here. It's the thing you used to escape just now, right?" Seeing the attribute deity struggling in Li Jian's hand, Yin Xiu can't understand. They sacrificed so many offerings, which should have summoned a great disaster misfortune. Why did the attribute deity bring him instead? As Li Jian approaches, Yin Xiu panics more, saying, "Wait, we know we were wrong. We admit our mistakes and will surrender. We can also apologize to the Sagittarius sacred group." But Li Jian doesn't listen. With a loud boom, Tiangong's verdict directly descends from above. Li Jian says, "Have you forgotten the most important thing? Guilt." Seeing Li Jian, like an abyss demon, slowly raising the knife in his hand, Yin Xiu is instantly drenched in cold sweat. As the son of Libra's saint, he never thought he would have to pay for his mistakes. However, in the next second, he notices the sacred artifact at his feet, the cross balance. And at this moment, Yin Taiyu also regains consciousness, thinking there was a minor error in the summoning ritual. Unexpectedly, Yin Xiu uses the sacred artifact on him, employing the equivalent return skill. Immediately, several chains tightly bind him. His body also gradually begins to transform into a disaster misfortune. Li Jian laughs. As expected of Libra's son, the younger brother sacrificed his own brother. Then Li Jian stomps his foot, sacred ground descends. In an instant, Libra's golden scales shatter to pieces. Because this place is now Ophiuchus's territory, Libra's powers can no longer be used here. Also because of this, without Libra's power support, Yin Taiyu dies during the mutation process. Seeing everything happening before his eyes, Yin Xiu becomes even more desperate. Looking at the gradually collapsing Yin Xiu, Li Jian smiles. "How about it? Shouldn't this farce end now?" Then Li Jian uses Sagittarius' skill, Observer's Eye. "Come on, speak your last words." He hopes Yin Xiu will confess and apologize to everyone before death. Unexpectedly, the frenzied Yin Xiu shows no remorse, continuously making excuses. "The bloodlight mist issue has been resolved. Everything is over. Why are you still dwelling on it? I am the son of Libra's St. Lawrence. If you dare touch me, my mother will not let you off." Before he can finish, he notices Li Jian is dozing off. Yin Xiu thinks Li Jian never intended to listen to him speak, but Li Jian slowly opens his eyes and says, "Are you finished? I heard you very clearly, and so did everyone else." It turns out Li Jian used the Observer's Eye skill to broadcast the situation to the whole world. After learning the truth, ordinary people all flock to demand an explanation from Libra. "What do you mean it's over? Is this something a human can say?" If not for Li Jian, thousands of people would have died. Seeing the world's curses and rebukes, Yin Xiu completely panics. Even if his mother is Libra's saint, she cannot quell everyone's anger. Li Jian smiles. "Congratulations on becoming a criminal despised by the whole world," as Li Jian's gleaming sword is about to strike down. However, in the next second, a golden light appears behind him. "Enough, Li Jian. I will no longer stand by." It's Lawrence's voice transmitted remotely. Hearing his mother's voice, Yin Xiu instantly tears up. Li Jian laughs nearby. "Finally showing up? Waste?" Lawrence says, "Li Jian, I didn't expect you to cause such a commotion." Li Jian directly mocks, "If releasing disaster misfortunes to destroy cities a small matter to you." After saying this, Li Jian steps on Yin Xiu's back and says, "Since you don't like my way, let's do it the way you prefer. Either fight me and let me teach you all a lesson, or expose all your crimes and pay the price. Of course, you also need to tell me who stabbed me in the Demon Tower." Such provocative demands, how could Lawrence possibly agree? Without another word, Li Jian directly brings down his sword. With blood splattering, Lawrence's remotely controlled authority is completely panicked. Lawrence says, "Can you bear the consequences of doing this?" Li Jian says nonchalantly, "What, you're already angry? I'm just getting started." Li Jian activates his super regeneration skill and instantly several beams of light envelop Yin Xiu. Because Li Jian had previously used the Sacred Ground Descend skill, his super regeneration skill also received a boost, and Yin Xiu, who just experienced the brink of death, is extremely terrified. Before he can react, Li Jian's giant sword strikes again. Faced with the frenzied attacks, Yin Xiu can only let out heart-wrenching screams. Seeing this scene, Lawrence never imagined Li Jian would really dare to act. Even more terrifying to her is that Li Jian possesses the power to control life and death. At this moment, pain overwhelms Yin Xiu's brain, his face filled with fear. Seeing Li Jian repeatedly torture and save Yin Xiu, Lawrence can no longer endure. But in the next second, a massive disaster misfortune is directly teleported to Libra's sacred ground. When Lawrence sees the monster's figure, she instantly bites her lips in anger, blood flowing from between her teeth. Looking at the stunned Libra saint, Li Jian mocks, "Your most beloved eldest son has returned. You should be happy. Give him a good hug." Lawrence is furious. "Li Jian, you've completely angered me. I will make you pay for all of this." Li Jian says sarcastically, "This is just my answer to your choice. Anyone who stands in my way will meet this fate. Whether it's someone chosen by the sacred group or an unknown civilization's disaster misfortune, even a sacred god would be the same." After saying this, he directly slashes and kills Libra's attribute deity. Seeing him kill the attribute deity, Lawrence completely erupts. A golden light beam shoots into the sky. Then she orders, "Contact all branches and allied sacred groups to launch a total attack. We must eliminate Li Jian." After all her subordinates depart, a figure appears behind her. It's a monster from the unknown civilization. Lawrence waves her hand, instantly summoning a planetary device. A large amount of black mist emerges from the sphere. Lawrence grabs it, as if trying to capture the dark realm, and in the unknown civilization's dark area, over 1,000,000 calamity troops are ready. Suddenly a golden hand descends from the sky, directly reaching into the depths of the dark area. Meanwhile, Lawrence pulls out a black-red gas cluster from the sphere, and Demon Eye gradually forms on the black cluster. Instantly, a terrifying energy surges into Lawrence's body like a tidal wave. As time fermented, everyone waited for Libra's next move. Some people, with an attitude of watching the drama, said that Li Jian might be slandering Libra. This was a common negative strategy between sane groups. Others said, with such a major incident, isn't it strange that Libra's side remains silent? Well, it's hard to say. Libra's people might still be busy making up excuses to dismiss this incident. Looking at the media broadcast, Haley said, I didn't expect that besides poisoning Li Jian's food, you could also do this. Kevin replied, I'm just managing the media discourse under my control. Besides, what I gave him was a supplement, not poison. What about you? Haley said, what I added was an antidote that could dissolve your inferior poison. Then both turned to Yuguo and asked, with things blown up so big, where has the main culprit gone? Yuguo was also full of questions. Meanwhile, after dealing with the Libra Saint's 2 children, Li Jian was busy taking over Libra's resort, planning to build it into Ophiuchus' temple. You Libra trash? Wait for my punishment. He directly activated his gluttony skill. In the face of absolute power, even Aquarius's attribute deity had no choice but to receive Ophiuchus. From her explanation about disinfectant, Yuguo and others who just arrived also understood the situation. Could this guy Li Jian be planning to settle down here? Kevin's casual remark startled Haley. Then Haley immediately summoned Scorpio's attribute deity, telling him to bring everything that could be given to Li Jian. The attribute deity hesitated. Haley immediately scolded, hurry up, I don't want to lose to others in this regard. When the gates of the Ophiuchus temple opened, waves of scorching heat immediately surged forward. In the center of the hall stood a massive lava furnace. The burning magma inside instantly shocked everyone. So this is what Li Jian built after destroying Libra's resort? He couldn't be planning to build an ironworks here, could he? As Yuguo and others gradually approached, the sound of metal being hammered became clearer. When everyone found Li Jian, he was sweating profusely and paused his work saying, you've come. However, when Li Jian turned around, Haley was triggered, with 2 streams of hot blood shooting from her nose. Everyone who saw this was speechless. Then Haley fainted directly. Yuguo asked, didn't you just occupy this place? How did you build all this so quickly? Li Jian said he unlocked the gluttony skill when he occupied this place. After specifying a target, regardless of its type, he could devour it and recreate it. I'm full of energy now, and have mountains of work to do. This is the weapon I promised to make for Lu Hei, and I'll forge one for Shunkai and Jiyu too afterward. Upon hearing this, Shunkai and Jiyu were thrilled. Yuguo thought his good brother had forgotten about him. But Li Jian reached out his hand and said, take it out. Yuguo asked in confusion, take what out? Li Jian said, what else could it be? Of course it's the broken royal sacred artifacts of Sagittarius. But in the next second, the entire hall shook violently. Shunkai and others discovered that Haley had suddenly disappeared. When everyone went outside, they found her standing alone, surrounded by boxes. Facing Li Jian's gaze, Haley immediately became nervous. She said, since you're settling down here, consider these as my housewarming gifts. Haley thought her words sounded natural and was quite satisfied with her performance. She didn't realize how flustered she appeared in Li Jian and others' eyes. Yuguo looked at Li Jian and said, she's definitely sincere. Why don't you two get married? When Haley opened one of the boxes, she was startled. These things weren't hers. They were all envelopes addressed to Li Jian, and one of them bore the seal of the Leo Saint group. Li Jian frowned. Why would someone from Leo write to me? Yuguo teased. Maybe it's from one of your fans. Haley said it was a resume. Li Jian was even more confused. Why would someone from Leo send me a resume? Shunkai thought it might be from his sister, because yesterday at the arena, he announced she was leaving Leo. Meanwhile, at the Leo Saint group headquarters, an angry Mark smashed the table before him with one punch. He said, what exactly are you dissatisfied with? Tell me, I'll help solve anything I can. He said, I just want to leave the Saint group and join another one. Mark said, that's not what I meant. I'm talking about contract terms or treatment issues. Is it really okay for you to leave now? Mark worried that after she left, she wouldn't be able to suppress the evil god's power in her arm. It turns out that a few days after the blood mist incident 10 years ago, because their mother was hospitalized in a coma, the brother and sister stayed by her side constantly. Lu Hei, asleep, was suddenly awakened by elevator sounds. She thought her father had returned. However, when she reached the door, she found no one exiting the open elevator. Just as the elevator door was closing, a strange voice came from behind. Hello, are you Lu Hei? The sudden voice instantly dispelled her drowsiness. Startled, Lu Hei quickly looked behind her. The person removed their hat and said, oh dear, did I scare you? He immediately recognized them as the Libra Saint who often appeared on television. The two then sat down together. Lawrence said, I was worried about you because of the blood mist incident, so I came. Lu Hei said emotionally, everyone has tried their best. I believe you've all done everything possible. Lawrence said, you're so composed despite such setbacks. No wonder Yuguo always boasts about his children. But Lawrence's following words made Liu He break into a cold sweat. My children aren't like you. They're always causing trouble and they've done it again. I've confined them. How wonderful it would be if you were my child. Lu He was completely terrified by Lawrence's horrifying expression. Then Lawrence laughed and said, I'm just joking. I've scared you. you. To show apology, Lawrence pointed, instantly summoning 2 ruby earrings. Looking at the shining earrings handed to her, Lu he said, I can't accept such precious gifts. Lawrence said, don't be polite. These were prepared specially for you. A welcome gift. Yuguo, who had just returned, saw his daughter about to accept Lawrence's gift. He never expected Libra would come looking for his child. Yuguo wanted to stop Lu He from accepting, but it was too late. Lawrence revealed a wicked smile, instantly opening his palm and placing the earrings in Lu He's hand. However, in the next second, the earrings transformed into 2 black vapors that quickly spread up her arms. As the black gas continued to corrode, Lu He clutched her arms in pain and fell to her knees. Seeing his daughter suffering, Yuguo immediately rushed forward to help dissolve it. Just as he was about to touch her, a tremendous force sent him flying, crashing through several walls. Lawrence laughed and said, Yuguo, do you still think you're a saint, leaving your child alone so late? That's parental negligence. Looking at his daughter kneeling on the ground, being corroded by the black gas, Yuguo looked at Lawrence with hatred and shouted, return her to normal immediately. Lawrence said, that's impossible. You don't take my word seriously enough. But she didn't expect Lu He's willpower to be so strong. Normally, she should have been consumed by the evil god's aura by now. But Lu He can still hold on, though she'll ultimately fail to escape being devoured. Lawrence said, if you want to save your daughter, follow me and become my subordinate. He believed Yuguo was more valuable than other saints. If he submitted to Libra, she would compensate for the power Yuguo had lost and help him rejoin the ranks of saints. It was then that Yuguo realized this had been Lawrence's plan all along. While she waited for Yuguo's answer, suddenly a small hand grabbed her ankle. Lu, he said, don't bully my father. Lawrence laughed loudly. He didn't expect Lu He would try to turn the evil god's power back against her. Lawrence raised one hand, intending to teach her a lesson. Yuguo hastily mobilized his remaining magic power to rush forward and stop her. However, in the next moment, a golden lightning bolt descended from the sky, instantly forming a golden light barrier that firmly protected Lu He. Seeing the sudden golden lightning, Lawrence was startled. The one who intervened was none other than the Leo saint, Stephen Mark. Liu. He was grateful for the Holy Lord's help back then, but now she wanted to quickly become stronger and needed to train herself in new ways, because she hoped she could help Li Jian. Mark said that for 10 years he had done his utmost, even turning a blind eye to Lu He's secretly meeting Scorpio because of the evil energy in her arm. Even with all this, if she was still determined to leave, then the problem must be with him. However, his actions stunned Lu He. Could he really be crying? But in the next second, Leader Oliver burst through the door. He said, go ahead, leave quickly, always treating saint group activities like child's play. Once you leave, don't think about coming back. Get out. His appearance angered Mark, who roared, get out of here. He had just managed to soften Lu He's heart, and now Oliver was messing everything up. Oliver believed there was no point in persuading someone whose head was full of thoughts of Li Jian to stay. Mark said, she's the Vice Holy Lord after all. If we don't keep such excellent talent, who should we keep? Oliver said, what if I leave instead? Mark said, why would you leave? Oliver said, answer me. Mark said, fine, everyone can leave then. You leave too. However, Mark's angry words were taken seriously by Oliver. Next, a tremendous aura erupted from within him. Mark was shocked to sense this aura. It was Libra's. As Oliver's aura continued to rise, his appearance underwent a complete transformation. Mark tried to stop Oliver from activating the evil power bestowed by Libra. But in the next second, Oliver's attack came. Mark didn't expect Oliver to sever his arm with just one strike. Mark rebuked him for betraying Leo to join Libra. Oliver said, both the Holy Lord and Vice Holy Lord treat the saint group like a game. If you had managed it seriously, I wouldn't have chosen this path. Oliver always believed Leo valued strength above all. He thought Mark had forgotten this, which is why he appointed S-ranked Lu He as Vice Holy Lord, directly overlooking him. The SS ranked who surpassed Lu He in both achievements and power ranking. As Holy Lord, you're always beaten by Li Jian, and the Vice Holy Lord gets so excited at seeing Li Jian that she neglects the saint group. I schemed to harm the previous Vice Holy Lord for this position. In the end, Liu He got the advantage. Lu He stiffened in shock, realizing that her teacher being surrounded by monsters without support years ago was Oliver's doing. The next second, Lu He appeared directly in front of him. She said, you deserve to die. Then she threw a punch directly at Oliver. Facing Lu He's full force attack, Oliver revealed a cold smile. Then he grabbed her wrist, saying, you're far too weak. To crush an opponent, you should do it like this. As he spoke, he raised his arm and swung at Lu He. His attack landed heavily, unstoppable, slamming Lu He hard to the ground. After the dust settled, a huge crater appeared in the first floor hall. Liu, he lay within it. As everyone looked on in shock, she slowly rose. The next second came Oliver's voice. You're no match for me now. If you don't want to die, summon the monster in your arm to fight me. Meanwhile, in the Ophiuchus temple, Li Jian gave his first task to Chen Ji-yu, who would become a recorder, because Li Jian sensed that Liu he needed help now. With the blessing of 2 recorders on the spear, the next second, the spear shot skyward, flying in a certain direction, because it would find its way to its master. As the intense battle between Liu He and Oliver continued, their battlefield soon moved to an underground station. Liu He declared she would execute the traitor Oliver here, burying him forever underground. The angry Oliver directly activated Leo's skill, Beast Transformation. Liu, he also began to gather power. Instantly, her whole body was surrounded by red lightning. Then she transformed into a red thunderbolt, shooting forward. Just as Liu he was about to strike again, Oliver withstood the attack and grabbed her, then violently slammed her into a train. To suppress the evil god's power in both arms, Liu he had no extra strength to continue fighting. She didn't expect that after working so hard, she couldn't even defeat Oliver who merely borrowed external power, let alone help Uncle Leo. Now Oliver wouldn't give her time to hesitate. He grabbed a train car and threw it at Liu He. Liu He had no strength left to dodge. The next moment a mysterious voice sounded in her mind. I am pleased with your fighting spirit. Then a piercing friction sound and dazzling white light instantly engulfed everything. As Liu He stared in shock, the oncoming train was split by a bright light. A spear emanating a serene blue glow stood quietly on the ground. Welcome, one with unyielding fighting spirit. This was the first weapon forged by Li Jian after becoming a holy god. Just standing there, it split the oncoming train in half. It also possessed the ability to cross continents and automatically find its master. When Liu He picked up the spear, the mysterious voice appeared again. To join Ophiuchus, you must prove your worth. She realized this was help from Uncle Li Jian. She gripped the spear tightly. Then, her injuries and energy rapidly recovered. At this moment, her aura continued to rise, and the energy field she emitted swept through the entire underground station. Oliver noticed this too. He couldn't let her continue, so he lunged directly at Liu He to kill her. Liu He also noticed Oliver's movement. She instantly gripped the spear with one hand and began to gather power. As she gathered power, an aura belonging to Ophiuchus quickly enveloped her, then struck directly at Oliver. Meanwhile, Mark was being treated by subordinates who had rushed to help. Suddenly he saw a thick pillar of light descend from the sky, instantly plunging into the ground. Seeing this, everyone hurried to the broken window to look down. Soon after, an immense energy storm appeared. When everything quieted down, everyone discovered the building had been split in half. Mark leaped down. He wanted to find out exactly what had happened. However, for Liu He, becoming stronger isn't a means but her goal. That's why she could become Vice Holy Lord. Oliver turned his head away and said, you still talk so much even after I cut off your arm. However, when Liu He jumped to the ground, Mark was stunned. Then he shouted, why is the aura emanating from you not Leo's, but Li Jian's? Liu He said, I told you I want to join Uncle Li Jian's saint group. Mark said, I haven't agreed yet, and the Holy God won't agree either. If you insist on leaving, you'll have to step over my body. The next second, Liu He received the task from Ophiuchus to defeat Mark. However, Oliver's roar caught their attention. Don't think this is over. This is just the beginning. You have no idea what Liber truly is. As he spoke, Oliver's broken body began to glow. Under Mark and Liu He's astonished gaze, the light orb flying into the sky rapidly expanded. Oliver was using his remaining power to complete a summoning. As the light orb continued to expand, a huge claw appeared from within. Then, an even larger figure gradually emerged from the light orb. Seeing such a formidable monster, Mark quickly shielded Liu He behind him. When the monster fully appeared, everyone recognized it as the disaster misfortune leader Li Jian had slain 10 years ago. Red Eye. Mark wanted everyone to flee quickly, but the next second, Red Eye unleashed an energy breath. Meanwhile, in the Ophiuchus temple, Li Jian, who was repairing Sagittarius's royal sacred artifact, sensed something strange. The aura of the being he had once slain had appeared again. Not only that, but monsters were also attacking multiple locations around the world. However, several saint groups led by Libra immediately stepped forward, saying they would work with allied saint groups to eliminate the disaster misfortunes, without mentioning the punishment of the Holy Lord's son. Li Jian and others never expected Libra would use eliminating disaster misfortunes as an excuse to take action. Yu Guo was surprised about Red Eye's appearance. Haley explained, because Li Jian couldn't come out of the demon tower back then, Yu Guo severed ties with other saints, so he doesn't know the inside story. Regarding the ownership of Red Eye, there was a dispute among the saint groups. Finally, the saints unanimously decided to seal Red Eye's head and throw it into the sea. And this suggestion came from Libra. Yu Guo suspected Libra had retrieved the head, and Li Jian thought this was something she would do. Regardless, he wanted to personally confirm if it was the one he had dealt with before. Li Jian asked Haley to set up some barriers in the Ophiuchus temple, as she was skilled in this area, so he could go fight the monster with peace of mind. As Li Jian approached, Haley's cheeks instantly flushed, and this profit-seeking expression through Haley's filter became infinitely charming. Then she hastily rummaged through boxes looking for useful sacred objects. The attribute deity reminded Haley to calm down. At this rate, she would bankrupt Scorpio. But Haley didn't care. She felt Li Jian could only rely on her, and it didn't matter if she emptied Scorpio's sacred objects. Calming down, Haley continued to imagine, isn't this like living together? Isn't that marriage? Thinking of this, Haley nearly fainted from happiness. Yu Guo thought Li Jian would ask him to go together to eliminate Red Eye. But unexpectedly, Li Jian told him to return to the country immediately. But Red Eye had appeared where Liu He was, and he couldn't not go. Li Jian said he could sense Liu He's aura, and would protect her well, because he detected that Libra had also sent forces to H country, and the remaining members of Sagittarius couldn't handle it alone. Meanwhile, in H country, the city under Sagittarius's jurisdiction was also under monster attack. Due to prolonged fighting, everyone was showing signs of fatigue. Without support, the entire city would fall. But the next second, a figure appeared, launching a fierce attack directly at the disaster misfortune. Everyone was stunned by this sight. The previously intimidating disaster misfortune now lay lifeless on the ground. When everyone saw who had arrived, they were shocked. It was the Taurus saint, Ivan Kruger. Ivan smiled. Indeed a rookie saint group, frightened by such a small scene. Where's Yu Guo? Gute knew the visitor had ill intentions, but still thanked him for his assistance. He said, "The Holy Lord is not here. If Lord Ivan has business, we will convey it to him." Ivan said, "No need, I'll wait here patiently." Then he grabbed Li Ziyuan's shoulder and said, "Don't you know I hate people standing in my way?" and gave him a heavy punch. Seeing Gutei's angry roar, Ivan looked disdainful. Li Ziyuan rose under Ophiuchus's power and said, "I was wondering why you, who've always had bad relations with our Holy Lord, would help. Your target isn't the disaster misfortune, but us, right?" Ivan said, "It's such a waste for you to serve such a garbage Holy Lord." Li Ziyuan said, "You have been belittling our Holy Lord from the beginning. Please don't call Lord Yuguo like that." Ivan shook his head repeatedly, saying, "How does that guy train his subordinates? No discipline at all." Anyway, Libra instructed that none should be left alive. The next second, his aura as a saint erupted. Meanwhile, in the temple of Ophiuchus, after Li Jian finishes explaining everything, Yuguo also begins to leave. Just as Yuguo departs, Li Jian says, "Alright, we should get ready too." Chen Zhayu asks confusedly, "Are we leaving right away?" Li Jian says, "No, before dealing with the red eye, we need to handle the disaster misfortune that's arrived at the sanctuary." On the other side, the sacred objects supporting the magic formation simultaneously shatter. Immediately the sea's waves surge violently. An army advancing across the waves suddenly appears. "You humans over there, where is the master of Ophiuchus?" Eugene tries to rebuke them, but is answered by a slashing attack from a skeletal knight. "Lowly human, don't interrupt carelessly." Facing the powerful attack from earlier, the attribute deity of Scorpio blocks it all, but his armor suffers severe damage. Haley, surprised that a casual strike from the opponent broke through the attribute deity's defense, she suspects it's an army sent from the headquarters of the unknown civilization. The skeletal knight also senses the aura of his kind from the recent clash. Could they be the traitors of their race that Libra mentioned? "Since you're the disgrace of our race, then disappear." As the knight commander finishes speaking, the skeletal warriors immediately charge forward. The attribute deity of Scorpio tries to use his tailhook to defend, but his defensive line collapses instantly, as if it never existed before the rapidly advancing skeletal warriors, and the edge of the sword doesn't diminish at all, heading straight for Haley. Just as the sword is about to hit, Haley instantly switches to battle mode, directly swatting away the blade with one hand. With sparks flying from the clash of armor and sword, Haley quickly flashes to the side and throws out her whip. As Haley's momentum continues to rise, her aura as a saint spreads out in an instant. Then blue light suddenly appears behind her, and the blue light transforms into arrows attacking the Ghost Legion. In an instant, many ghost soldiers are shattered by the arrows, but the Ghost Knight commander grabs the incoming arrow. A figure slowly walks out of the building. What a big pile of trash. You must be Libra's dogs, right? Seeing Li Jian coming to help, Haley immediately becomes excited. The Knight commander finally realizes, this must be the master of Ophiuchus that Libra mentioned. He sighs directly. "How disappointing. I heard you were a holy god, but you're so tiny." Li Jian says, "Do I have to meet your expectations? Answer me. Are you Libra's people?" The other party says, "Shut up. How dare you be disrespectful? Do you know who you're talking to?" However, before he finishes, he is shot dead on the spot. Li Jian says, "You dare tell me to shut up? Who gave you the courage?" Looking at the fallen skeletal warrior, the Ghost Knight commander finally understands why Libra is so cautious about Li Jian. He couldn't even see the earlier arrow clearly. Although it was a surprise attack, one arrow defeated their elite. He immediately summons his weapon and says, "Worthy of being the master of Ophiuchus. Indeed, I underestimated you. We are the vanguard of the great unknown civilization's army, subordinates of Lord Helmet Baron, the Ghost Knight Order. We've come to punish you humans who follow the deceitful holy gods." As the Ghost Knight commander finishes speaking, all his soldiers charge toward Li Jian. Li Jian roars angrily, "Today, let me teach you what self-awareness means." The next second, an extremely fast blade shadow flies out from the building. Li Jian Xiangong's verdict. In an instant, large numbers of skeletal soldiers are swallowed by the blade light. The skeletal knight finds the right moment to charge. He believes Li Jian is focused on controlling the flying knife and off guard. The next second, his thought dies before it's born. Facing the sudden thrust of the long spear, Li Jian grabs it, then executes a shoulder throw, slamming it into the ground. No matter how many spears and blades come at him, Li Jian dodges them effortlessly. He even bundles the incoming weapons together. Then with one hammer strike, he sends the skeletal knights flying. Seeing this, the knight captain is completely stunned. How is this possible? Before he can finish thinking, a ball of intense fire suddenly engulfs his entire squad. The ones who attack are the attribute deities of Scorpio who arrived just in time. Li Jian smiles, "You came at the perfect time. You can clean up the rest." Then he looks at the knight commander standing at the back and says, "You should come exercise too." The Ghost Knight commander grits his teeth and charges toward Li Jian. Meanwhile, blue energy gradually forms in his palm. Then he swings it directly at Li Jian. As the blade's edge instantly approaches, Li Jian doesn't dodge at all, casually cutting through it with one slash. With a thunderous sound, the knight commander's fierce light charge is easily blocked. Seeing this, the Ghost Knight commander is shocked. Li Jian chuckles. Then with one kick, he blasts off the head of the Ghost Knight commander's mount, followed by another slash that cuts it in half. The Ghost Knight commander ignores his mount and hastily leaps up, saying, "You do have some skill. Try this move then." Next, a ghost storm appears in his palm. Seeing this, Li Jian gives him no time to gather power, swinging his great blade. Facing the flying blade, the Ghost Knight commander hurriedly dodges sideways, but he's still a step too late. The great blade directly hits the arm he was charging power with. His ghost storm is fully formed, but the attack direction changes to his own ghost army. The moment the storm falls, all his soldiers are eliminated by his own move. Seeing this, the Ghost Ghost Knight commander stands dumbfounded. Haley and others seize the opportunity to entangle him. Haley says, "Ha, the big fish has finally taken the bait." Just as the Ghost Knight commander tries to break free, Li Jian appears behind him. Li Jian directly stabs his back. Then, the Ghost Knight commander is slammed heavily to the ground. With the defeat of the Knight commander, the few remaining defeated soldiers are all dealt with by the attribute deities of Scorpio. The Ghost Knight commander can't believe their entire Knight Order was so easily annihilated. Li Jian chuckles and says, "Didn't you destroy your Ghost Knight Order yourself?" But the next second, strange light flashes in the Knight commander's eyes. Then, a transfer channel gradually forms behind Li Jian. Before he can react, the Ghost Knight commander grabs Li Jian and charges in. Just as everyone is shocked, the two have already jumped into the transfer channel. "Even if I die, I'll take Li Jian with me." As the two continue to fall, Li Jian quickly shifts his position to stand on the Ghost Knight commander's back. Even if they crash to the ground, Li Jian will make him his cushion. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Leo, after being hit by the Red Eye's energy breath, the already devastated city becomes even worse. Mark, who blocked the energy way for everyone, is injured even more severely, but he still stands tall before everyone. This scene directly shocks everyone, but then he falls sitting to the ground with a thud. Liu he quickly comes forward to check. Mark manages a slight smile and says, "I'm fine." Suddenly, the Red Eye shows movement. Mark becomes anxious. It seems to be going somewhere else to cause destruction. "We must stop it." The other revived members run over, stating they will fight alongside the Holy Lord. After hearing this, Mark is moved to tears, but after hearing everyone shouts, Mark is instantly stunned. Holy Lord once defeated the Red Eye before. "With our help this time, we can surely succeed." Liu he quickly says, "The Red Eye is too strong. Doing this will only increase needless casualties. You have other things to do. Help evacuate the citizens who haven't left yet. I'll assist the Holy Lord here." Hearing this, everyone immediately begins to act. Seeing Liu He's calm handling of the crisis, Mark expresses his gratitude. Liu He says, "No problem. You can't get into trouble before I defeat you, Holy Lord." Then the two look toward the Red Eye that wants to leave. Liu He asks Mark, "Are you going to show your true power now?" But Mark sighs and says, "Don't you know the inside story? It was Li Jian who defeated the Red Eye back then." Hearing Mark's confession firsthand, Liu he is instantly shocked. Mark says, "Li Jian isn't here now. Someone has to step up to stop it, so this time we can only rely on ourselves. Even at a terrifying cost, we have to use the Holy God Descent now." Just as Mark is summoning the Holy God Descent, he's suddenly interrupted by Li Jian falling from the sky. It turns out when the Ghost Knight commander grabbed Li Jian during the transfer, he thought it was no big deal that Li Jian defeated him, as long as he met that monster. Even if he was a master of Ophiuchus, he couldn't possibly handle it. What he didn't know was that the Red Eye had already been defeated by Li Jian 20 years ago. Upon learning of the Ghost Knight commander's plan, Li Jian was full of disdain. Facing the crazy charging Red Eye, Li Jian still wants to figure out if this is the same Red Eye as before. Although this monster looks identical to the Red Eye, he feels something is different. Looking only at appearance, this is indeed the previous Red Eye, but how could the cunning and vicious Red Eye from before show such a stupid expression? So he directly activated his skill, the 13th sense. Under the investigation of the true eye, Li Jian discovers this is not the Red Eye resurrected by the Demon Tower manager. Except for the head, its body is a counterfeit replica made by Libra. Realizing this is another of Lawrence's tricks, Li Jian raises the Tiangong's verdict. Meanwhile, at Libra's location in the M country, the team leader worries that the Red Eye was revived too hastily. Lawrence says this is just a hastily made puppet to be discarded after use, so there's no loss. Leo has already been flattened by it, and it would be even better if it could severely injure Li Jian. She also knows what her subordinate says is true. If that guy had come back alive, using the energy it collected would be enough to resurrect the Red Eye and the Black Dragon. But she never thought that the stupid toad would use up all hard-earned resources due to gluttony, and was easily defeated by the opponent. Just then, a subordinate reports, "Holy Lord, we have the latest news. We just confirmed that Yu Guo has returned to H country, probably about to face Ivan." Also, from the unknown civilization, Helmet Baron said he will personally take action. Earlier, the entire Ghost Knight Order was defeated in an instant. Lawrence feels the Baron should indeed take the field personally. Then, when she learns that her daughter Golly hasn't responded to messages, Lawrence's face suddenly turns cold. The subordinate is scared and quickly bows his head again. She can only sigh helplessly. "It seems Golly still doesn't want to listen to me. There's no time to wait anymore. Issue the order, prepare to march." The target is the Demon Tower in H country. At this time, in H country where Sagittarius is located, Yu Guo, who just returned, discovers all the disaster misfortune monsters in the city have been destroyed, and above the monster corpses is a figure silently observing everything below. Ivan says, "Isn't this the garbage Saint Yu Guo? Why are you only coming now?" Hearing Ivan's mockery, Yu Guo frowns and suppresses his emotions, because he wants to know Ivan's purpose here and why he attacked his subordinates. Ivan also sees through his thoughts and then smiles. "Didn't a Red Eye appear in M country? I planned to investigate the Demon Tower, but your subordinates blocked me, so I taught them a lesson." Yu Guo snorts coldly, then directly mocks. "You say you're investigating the Demon Tower? Why haven't you gone in yet? Suddenly scared? Or planning to escape like 20 years ago?" Hearing this, Yvonne's expression instantly freezes.
senses, and their past, unknown to others, instantly enrages Ivan. Ivan says, "You think you're the same as before because you've regained your power. Without your royal sacred artifact, you're still just a half-saint. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." After speaking, he directly activates Taurus's skill, Destructive War Chariot, and charges toward Yu Guo. Yu Guo clenches his fist. The fire elements in the air seem to be summoned, quickly gathering on his fist. Then he quickly throws a punch. The power of this punch is enormous. As the dust settles, the figure among the broken rocks and debris gradually appears. Ivan is terrified. He didn't expect the gap between them to be so large after Yu Guo recovered his power. At this point, Yu Guo's voice reaches him. "There's one more thing you got wrong. You said I don't have a royal sacred artifact, right?" The next second, a pillar of flame descends from the sky. Yu Guo reaches out and grabs it. Seeing this, Ivan's eyes nearly pop out. Yu Guo says, "Now you're scared? But I still prefer your arrogant look from just now." A divine bow appears in Yu Guo's hand, the royal sacred artifact of Sagittarius, the brilliant light path. Ivan is dumbfounded. Yu Guo's royal sacred artifact was actually repaired. Could Li Jian have fixed it? Just as the Taurus Saint feels terrified, Yu Guo's voice calmly carries over. "Don't be afraid, Ivan. Besides, we have old scores to settle, don't we? If we use weapons, neither of us will be satisfied, right?" It turns out that 20 years ago when Li Jian couldn't get out of the demon tower, Yu Guo demanded an explanation, but was directly punched to the ground by the Taurus Saint. His royal sacred artifact was also destroyed at that time. Thinking of this, Ivan trembles with fear. He continues to make threats. "Don't think you're great just because you fixed your royal sacred artifact." Before he can finish, Yu Guo directly gives him a punch, smashing him into a pit. Facing Yu Guo's frenzied attacks, Ivan has no way to defend. If this continues, he will really be beaten to death. Thinking of this, Ivan directly summons to his armor. With the armor's enhancement, he finally blocks Yu Guo's heavy punch. Ivan, with increased confidence, looks at Yu Guo and says, "That's right, I was careless just now. Now it's my turn, isn't it?" Facing the about to erupt Taurus, Yu Guo hurriedly jumps away. Since that's the case, he no longer holds back, directly summoning his royal sacred artifact from earlier. However, as soon as he takes it out, the next second, the entire bow body suddenly breaks in the middle, the bowstring snapping piece by piece. Because during Li Jian's battle with the ghost soldiers, he had used the bow to bind the incoming weapons. Then he hammered all the weapons along with the long bow away. Meanwhile, Mark, whose consciousness was drifting, suddenly hears the red eyes screams. He thinks the holy god has taken control of his body after the descent and is fighting with his body, which is why he woke up. But how could he, as a saint, leave everything to the holy god and just faint by himself? But the moment he opens his eyes, a huge monster arm is cut down, falling from the sky. The one who cut off the red eye's arm isn't Leo's holy god, but Li Jian. Mark immediately wakes up. How is Li Jian fighting the red eye while I'm sleeping here? Before Li Jian, no matter how huge the red eye's form is, it's just a matter of cutting it a few more times to kill it. The Tiangong's verdict with its blue light falls on the red eye, the terrible damage making it scream continuously. With a few more slashes from Li Jian, it will certainly die. But at this moment, the red eye endures the intense pain and reaches out to grab. The agile Li Jian directly jumps onto the incoming arm. The red eye's gaze closely follows him, biting toward Li Jian. No matter how fast it is, it can't keep up with Li Jian's speed. Seeing this, Mark hurriedly shouts, "This is bad. Don't jump around randomly. It will use its breath technique." Li Jian just laughs, instantly summoning his hammer. As the hammer enlarges, the giant hammer directly plugs the red eye's mouth. With the savage energy having nowhere to release, the next second, the hot energy explodes in its head. Then, a pillar of energy fire instantly fills the entire sky. As the firelight recedes, the red eye is now charred outside and tender inside. Even so, Li Jian still beheads it with one slash. Everyone who sees this is stunned. The most shocked is Mark. Only Li Jian could truly defeat the red eye. While everyone is cleaning up the battlefield, Li Jian and others discover a secret in the monster's belly. A black dragon crystal without any life signs lies quietly inside. Li Jian finally realizes the red eye is this black dragon's parasitic container. Mark and others are shocked how Li Jian knew this, because when Li Jian was locked in the demon tower, the tower's manager kept reviving disasters to fight with Li Jian, so he knows these things. Hearing this, Lu He and Mark are stunned, and this huge monster is made up of the red eye's head combined with other monsters' bodies. As for this black dragon, Li Jian believes Libra picked it up from the demon tower, as they have close relations with the unknown civilization, making it easy to get these things. Looking at the black dragon crystal, when Lu He asks how to handle it, Li Jian receives multiple compensation messages from Yu Guo. Just now, after Yu Guo's long bow broke piece by piece, without his royal sacred artifact, facing the fully armed Ivan, he can only choose to run. But at this moment, the ground beneath Yu Guo's feet shakes, and several black spikes attack. The attacker is actually the Cancer Saint, Louis Moran. Ivan also seizes the opportunity to attack with full force. However, a sword appearing out of nowhere repels him, then directly freezes him. Seeing it's Kevin who arrived, Yu Guo is very surprised. "How can it be you?" Kevin says, "Why can't it be me? Why are you always so miserable every time I see you? Also, when I was coming, I found a group of troublemakers at your base. I've already helped Sheng Kai and others solve the problem." Just then, the sound of ice breaking suddenly interrupts their conversation. Ivan, who broke out of the ice, says evilly, "So it's you. Thinking you can contain me with such ice, truly wishful thinking." Kevin just chuckles and says, "Your skin is still as thick as ever." Louis Moran stops Ivan saying, "We didn't come here to quarrel. The opponent isn't Li Jian, just two fallen saints." Let's finish them quickly. Hearing this, both are instantly furious. Do these idiots not think before speaking? Today we'll roast them all. Just as the four are about to clash, a figure suddenly descending from the sky makes all four freeze. Your relationship looks quite good. The Comer is none other than the Libra saint, Giselle Lawrence. Upon seeing who it is, Yuguo and Kevin are shocked. Is she going to take action personally? Ivan and the others hurriedly explain, "Why are you here? We haven't failed yet." Lawrence just raises one finger. The next second, a terrifying pressure descends, instantly pressing all four to their knees. Yuguo and others didn't expect that, although they're all saints, the difference in power could be so great. Louis Morin wants to ask why they're also being suppressed. Lawrence coldly says, "I let you command a saint order without a saint, but you couldn't even take down Sagittarius's sanctuary. And you, Ivan Kruger, not only failed to subdue Yuguo, but were badly beaten. How can I possibly entrust things to you like this? Stay here and
reflect properly." After speaking, she directly appears in front of Yuguo and the others. Lawrence raises one hand, instantly activating Libra's skill, equivalent exchange. She wants to turn the two into disasters. As the giant Libra's eye appears, the magic formation's light illuminates the entire sky. Seeing this, Gute and others are extremely shocked. Why has the Libra saint also come here? Suddenly, a huge shadow flies over their heads. The terrifying aura emitted by the shadow directly overshadows the city. Everyone feels this aura and immediately panics. That terrifying shadow is actually a giant dragon. The person who can command such a majestic dragon must only be Li Jian. However, when Lawrence discovers Li Jian, it's already too late. As Li Jian suddenly appears in front of her, Lawrence's head shatters like a broken vase. Seeing this, Yuguo and Kevin can hardly believe it. The invincible Lawrence couldn't withstand one punch from Li Jian. Looking at the fallen headless body, Ivan and others are dumbfounded. They never expected Li Jian's strength to be so terrifyingly at this level. The ruthless Libra saint was so easily defeated by Li Jian. Li Jian angrily looks at Yuguo and Kevin saying, "Why do I always see you being beaten every time we meet?" Yuguo points at Li Jian and shouts, "Why didn't you answer my contact? Do you know how many messages I sent?" But Li Jian looks completely confused. Then remembering the over 100 compensation messages Yuguo had sent earlier, he quickly turns his head away saying, "I'll help you fix it another day." Watching Li Jian and others laughing and quarreling, Ivan and his group are fuming. He charged straight at Li Jian, but what greets him is Li Jian's fist. With a bang, he is blasted into the sky. And when he wonders why Cancer isn't cooperating with him, he turns back to find Louis Morin about to dissipate, because Louis Morin has been bitten to pieces by the Black Dragon, and his falling figure is swallowed by the Black Dragon. Seeing Ivan and others so easily dealt with, Kevin's eyes are filled with admiration, while Yuguo is shocked about what's going on with this Black Dragon. Li Jian says, "It's a disaster misfortune revived using the sleeping magic dragon crystal, the Red Eye's head, and Ghost Knights, processed and crafted." Just as Li Jian and Yuguo are arguing, Kevin's question interrupts them. Does anyone know why this hasn't disappeared yet? The next second, golden chains descend from the sky. In an instant, Lawrence's body is wrapped in golden ropes. Then her head grows back in a bizarre way. Seeing this, Li Jian laughs. "Didn't expect you'd change to an even more disgusting face." Li Jian also summons the Tiangong's verdict and his hammer, saying, "No matter how many times you resurrect, I will smash you each time." Watching Lawrence slowly raise her hands, Li Jian urgently shouts, "Black Dragon, take those two away quickly," because he discovers Lawrence isn't human at all. They not only can't help here, but would become burdens for Li Jian. As Lawrence's palms quickly clasp together, Libra's golden magic formation appears above her. The next second, a dazzling golden light descends from the sky. Although this attack doesn't cause damage to Li Jian can see that Lawrence isn't human at all. Li Jian says, "Just put away your poor acting, Libra Holy God, Astrea." The Libra Holy God laughs upon hearing this. "So you knew all along. Since that's the case, I won't hold back anymore. Are you ready, Li Jian?" Li Jian smiles. "Shouldn't you be the one getting ready, trash? I don't know what method you used to stay behind, but if other holy gods knew, it would be interesting, wouldn't it?" Watching Li Jian gradually approach, Astrea shows a cold smile, but as his fist swings out, Taurus's sacred mark appears behind her. Li Jian didn't expect the Libra Holy God would actually use Taurus's skill. Seeing this, Kevin and Yuguo are dumbfounded. How is this possible? Taurus's sacred mark appeared above her head. The Libra Holy God says, "This kind of brute force technique indeed doesn't suit me. And your shock now is a bit too early, isn't it? I have many more to show you." After speaking, a huge shadow of a scale rises from the ground, and 6 sacred marks condense above the scale. Li Jian, rising slowly from the crater, also understands. Looking at the scale floating in the air and the sacred marks of other constellations, Li Jian suddenly realizes, "No wonder you're so confident. So you had this planned all along." Astrea smiles. "Of course. The holy gods were all angry after losing their saints, and these sacred marks are enough to prove their anger toward you. Can you withstand this power?" Li Jian says through gritted teeth, "As a holy god you've done such things. Wouldn't it be better to eliminate more disaster misfortune monsters?" But the Libra holy god doesn't see anything wrong with this. She thinks Li Jian dislikes saints and holy gods, but is obsessed with eliminating disaster misfortunes, considering those lowly humans so important. She does indeed hate Li Jian, but has to acknowledge his strength. As long as Li Jian doesn't interfere with them, they can agree to let him control the entire world. The premise is that Li Jian must join them, or he will become a constellation erased by the gods. words, Li Jian just laughs and says, "You're still the same as always, giving such stupid choices every time, not putting the safety of others in your eyes at all." In Estrella's view, the lives and deaths of insects aren't worth mentioning. She didn't expect Li Jian to still hold such a childish sense of mission. If that's the case, let me first lighten your burden, starting with clearing this city. As soon as the words fall, Estrella directly activates royal sacred skill, divine weaponry. Countless blades appear out of nowhere. In an instant, the island where the city is located is covered by countless swords. Then, she not only uses Aquarius's tornado, but even Cancer's clone technique. The arrogant Estrella says, "Things have come to this point, it's all your fault." Before Li Jian can react, ropes bind him tightly, and Aquarius's formation suddenly appears beneath his feet. Seeing this, Estrella points with one hand. Blade after blade flies toward Li Jian, but his fighting spirit instantly soars, and the binding ropes snap piece by piece. With a clang, he blocks the incoming giant sword. The Aquarius holy god laughs. "This is a skill summoned by the power of many holy gods. It won't be so simple to break. I have many more here. Prepare to continue receiving attacks. If you can't block all the swords here, the rest will pierce the city below." As the words fall, sword after sword flies toward the crowd in the city. In the critical moment, Kevin immediately rushes over, directly freezing the incoming blades. Then Guo shatters the frozen giant swords. Kevin is very angry because these giant swords cannot be scratched no matter how he scrapes them. Guo thinks it might be because these are all things summoned by holy god authority. Moreover, she has received support from other holy gods. If this continues, even Li Jian can't guarantee victory. But the sudden turbulence that appears next startles them both. The waves appearing out of nowhere are like heavy curtains covering the sky. Seeing this, everyone trembles and huddles together. Some saints even kneel and pray for the holy god's help. Kevin brightens at the sight, then kneels on one knee and begins to pray to the Virgo holy god, asking for support for Li Jian to grant him Virgo's power. Meanwhile, Li Jian looks at the huge waves in the sky. Li Jian didn't expect Estrella would flood the city to eliminate him. Li Jian plans to activate his skill, fighting god instinct, but a bright light suddenly appears behind him. At this time, Estrella thinks Li Jian isn't showing up because he's afraid, so he dare not come out. Since that's the case, she decides to sink the entire city to the bottom of the sea. No matter how many people are sacrificed, she must force Li Jian to appear. As the Aquarius sacred mark gradually brightens, in the blink of an eye, the seawater pours toward the city like a curtain. However, a blinding light instantly freezes the approaching tidal waves. Seeing this, Estrella also detects Li Jian's position, then orders her clones to kill him. Just as the clones approach, a black dragon directly breaks through the ice. Before the clones can react, an energy breath directly engulfs them. The energy pillar's momentum remains undiminished, heading straight for her main body. Estrella hurriedly activates the Gemini sacred mark, using the transfer gate to reflect the energy pillar, and the direction of reflection is toward the crowd in the city below. Li Jian hurriedly rides the black dragon to intercept, with a slash, directly annihilating it. And now behind Li Jian, Virgo's sacred mark has condensed. Upon seeing the sacred mark behind Li Jian, Estrella gnashes her teeth in rage. "Damn you, daughter of the moon, how dare you help Li Jian?" With the appearance of the sacred mark, Li Jian also receives a prompt. Due to Virgo Saint's prayer, Ophiuchus's divine position has begun to rise. The Virgo holy god has granted Ophiuchus power, and the divine position has been elevated once more. Li Jian says, "Just now you claimed to be the proxy of the holy god's anger, right? But now it seems it's not only you." Estrella scoffs, "You think there's anything more terrible than the holy god's anger in this world? And whose anger is your so-called anger?" Li Jian roars, "Stop putting on airs here. How many people have you harmed? Whether my friends or those innocent people, if I say it's the anger of those people, can your brain understand? Plus my anger from being stabbed in the demon tower that time. Tell me, who stabbed me? Was it you or related to those garbage working with you?" Estrella just shakes her head, then even laughs wildly. "I thought you were going to ask something important, so you're still looking for the culprit from back then. Want to know the answer that badly? But only the strong have the right to ask questions. Now it seems I should be the one questioning you. Besides, you only have a mere 2 holy gods. What can you do?" After speaking, Estrella activates Gemini's skill again, Star of Destruction. Looking at the gradually falling huge meteorite, Li Jian's aura instantly soars. "You think we have just 2 holy gods?" The next second, a hot light instantly stops the about to fall meteorite in midair, and the huge meteorite emits cracking sounds. It's Li Jian using Sagittarius's sacred technique, the sun god's ring.